On this special episode of Crushcast, I have finally dragged Bloop from the depths of Crushville to talk about Enfield once again. And in our previous Crushcast, we've talked about a lot of things not so positively about Enfield. So I wanted to do a follow-up video, Crushcast, on has the game improved since then, and also talk about like the character stories and whatnot. So before we get into that, Bloop, do you have any comments about combat before we get into the
Crushville?
Yes. I am very creative. See? This is why I don't do commentary videos, by the way. But
Well prepared intro, Lowy. Awesome.
yes, I.
Okay, we get it. Okay, so the thing is that I haven't played Enfield since fucking February, and I don't like Enfield because after the moment I got done with because I kind of predicted this while I was playing the game. It was like I was in the honeymoon phase. I was like, oh, everything's new, everything's fresh, the combat doesn't feel stale yet. Until eventually I just kind of reached a point where I'm like, do I want to even log into Enfield today? Or you have that last session of like nothing is sparking, nothing's interesting. There's no quests to really do. Like the quests that you do, you're just doing because you have stuff to do, not because you want to do it. You know what I mean? And so at that point, it's just like, well, now I just don't want to play the game anymore because the combat's not interesting. The operators aren't that interesting to experiment with. Like, what is there to really explore? There's not much story I'm attached to because it sucks. So I haven't logged in 2 months, and I have no motivation to log in for 2 months because Enfield has shit gameplay, and the only thing that motivates you to log on is dailies and chores. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is that you gave up on Crushfield.
Yes, very, very quickly, in fact, because that's the thing, is that the whole, like, Crush meme, it felt like half intentional. I hope that it was, like, slightly intentional. It's just like, haha, what if, like, you know the funny Crusher guy with 2 people who watch his videos? Let's do this purely for him. Yeah, no, but it's outside. Once that became just like a stale meme, it's just like I don't give a shit now. I just don't. Because the thing is that the only lineup I played was the Crush lineup, and I'm sure if I did start building other operators to start experimenting with new lineups, it would be a bit more interesting. But I have. Weirdly enough, I'm just now kind of realizing a criticism that I can make about the system that they have. Because operators don't exist in a vacuum, they exist within the context of their specified squad. You know what I mean? Like, your there's electric. What am I talking about?
Yep.
There's electric. There's fucking Genshin Impact. But, like, Akakuri, like, she inflicts burn. Well, I guess whatever it's called in the game. I'm arknights pilled. I don't know what the fuck
Combustion.
It's called. Combustion. So, like, she'll do the fire damage, and she works best with other fire damage things. And so if you can't just build Akakuri and just use her. You need to build her alongside all of the things that synergize with her. And so, since my account was already just built around all of the Crush operators, if I wanted to try out something new, I can't just try out one new operator. I have to try out the entire squad to actually utilize their potential correctly. Versus something like normal Arknights, where it's like, hey, I want to build Hadia, so I'm going to go buy Hadia, and I'm going to build Hadia, and then I can just play with Hadia. Because Arknights is more individual operator focused rather than squad focused. They're each individual parts within a greater squad. It's not, you need to put together this squad as an individual, like, entity. And so I do think that is partially something that just kind of crushes my motivation to want to experiment with the game, because it's like, if you want to try out something new, you got to try out everything. And it's like, I don't want to grind for 4 fucking operators just to make the game not boring again. You know what I mean?
Right, and I was going to mention my experience with it. So soon after we did our first Crushcast, um, at the time when we were recording it, because you had a lot more criticisms than I did, and I was still in that honeymoon phase
Yeah.
of still figuring things out and still enjoying it.
We both
Um,
were. I think we both were because
right.
I still enjoyed the game at the time, but I just I obviously had all these criticisms, but I came back to the game. Like I
Hmm.
probably like a week or two later, I'm just like I'm fucking done.
Right. So for me, like that was something that I noticed too, is that I was using the same team all the time because the problem is that the game is so new that you don't have a stockpile of resources. Like I keep saying, like, to Bloop, I have like 40 million LMD on my normal Arknights account. So when a new character comes out, if I want to build them, I can build them instantly. And so for because the game is so new, it is very difficult, well, at the time, to experiment with stuff, because if I want to do like the higher end stuff, like especially like the Umbral Monument, the first one that came out, um, I was basically forced to use my highest level team that I had together. And because I was only using one team, it got very repetitive and everything. Once I got enough resources to build a second team, that did help a lot. But one thing I did notice is that, like, the team compositions, like you talked about with Akakuri, like the way that they have operators portrayed is that it's like there's freedom but also not at the same time, because Estelle, for an example, Estella, the white-haired cat girl, um she does physical stuff, so you're like, okay, well then I can use her in a crush team, right? And it's like, no, not exactly, because she wants enemies to be frozen in order to do her combo skill that actually applies the vulnerability. So it's like you have these subsets of conditions where it's like, okay, Estella is physical and ice that wants to work with other ice and physical operators, because there's like a vanguard that also does ice and physical, and then yeah, so it's one of those things where I want to try out new teams, and I've built Tang Tang, I've built Rossi, and that definitely helped a lot because they feel more versatile. Well, Tang Tang kind of isn't. Well, I say that. I mean, she can be used in a lot of teams, but like, because of Rossi converting Art's affliction into physical vulnerability stacks, I can use Tang Tang and Rossi in a crush team, and that helped me a lot to have more variety. So it's really hard. Like the first few months of the game, you feel so limited, because of just the nature of how gotcha games work. So and and when we get to, like, you talk about like doing the daily chores and stuff, um we had talked about like how many different daily systems that you're encouraged to do in order to maximize your stockpile. And I have to say that collecting all of those different resource plots at the start is just a miserable experience for me personally. It reminds me, like, when my dad used to do like an hour-long RuneScape farm run every day. It's like it's obviously not that bad, but it's like you're doing like 10 minutes of just zooming around the map, and even with zip lines, it's just, you're not actually doing anything. You're just going around the map and going to these spots. And until you get a stockpile where you don't need to collect those every 2 or 3 days or whatever, um, it's rough. And the delivery system, like, I disliked that so much that I just stopped doing it after a while, and the game just became instantly better. The the delivery thing to get more stock bills, if you remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
and 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 yeah, as we've talked about in the previous thing, it's like they have all of these different things, and OG Arknights had a lot of stuff that you needed to do every day that weren't very enjoyable, at least for me to interact with, like the credit, the um and doing the base and everything. So then they just add more systems, and it's like when you feel obligated to do that much stuff, like that is not fun.
Yeah,
But
it's I never. I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's like I never did that stuff. Like I never. I did the delivery stuff because that was at least a bit more interesting.
mhm,
But because it gave me an incentive to build my zip lines. But I never did a single daily run in Enfield ever. Like throughout the month and a half I maybe played Enfield, I didn't ever log in purely to do dailies
mhm,
because that's not fun. It's not fun for me. Like I would only go and do those things when I absolutely needed to. And the thing is that it is a matter of incentive because when you're designing a game, as the designer, you need to incentivize players to make certain decisions. But you can't
mhm,
purely incentivize players with in-game progression because that's all that Enfield is. It's why should I go around and do these daily farming stages? Oh, because you can get materials for progression. Why should I go around and collect these little thingies? Oh, it's for progression. Why should I do the delivery thing? Oh, it's so you can get the stock bills so you can spend those on items that you can use for progression. The entire reason why you do anything is because of progression. And if the thing is innately not fun, then I have no incentive to
mhm.
actually do it because why would I care
Right.
about getting materials to reinvest into the game if I'm not having any fun doing so? Like, you need to actually make the farming side of things enjoyable. You can't purely just make it, you know, it just, oh, you're incentivized to do it because of stuff. It's like stuff
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything. There's no actual value in any of these items if I don't value the progression that it gives me, because the progression it gives me is just, now what? Well, now I can do the harder farming stages. Well, okay, what do I do with the harder farming stages? Well, you get more resources. Well, okay, what do I do with those resources? You can build your operators more. Well, why do I build my operators? So you can do the hardest farming stage. And so
Yeah.
because the gameplay isn't fun, I have no incentive to want to farm to diversify my lineups. And so
Mhm.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit at all. And the
Yeah,
thing is, in
I totally
Arknights,
get it.
at least in Arknights, they've managed to streamline the process because like Hypergraph understands that that is not why people play Arknights. People don't play Arknights for the farming. People play Arknights for the rewards, but that's a different conversation. You don't log into Arknights and you don't just do your dailies and get off. I don't really think that. Well, okay, I know some people fucking do that, but I mean that like for me and you, we don't do that.
Mhm.
Our dailies just kind of come naturally because we just play the game for fun. But when we log in and we need to do a farming stage because we need some material or something, it's done in 20 seconds because they've managed to quality of life it to where we can it's super easy to farm now. Because that's not the
Mhm.
main point. The point isn't to farm, the point is to actually play the game. And I'm incentivized to farm, even if it's boring, because there are operators I want to build. Like today,
Mhm.
legitimately today, I spent maybe like 10 Originium Prime on refills so I could build Hadia. Because of the fucking red certs, because those things suck.
Yeah, the red certs are the worst.
Yeah, so it's like I am perfectly fine with going through that tedious as fuck process because I am promised a fun new operator. But you don't fucking have that in Enfield. You can't encourage me to do boring shit if the reward for doing boring shit is nothing but the ability to do more boring shit.
Mhm.
That's not how you design
Yeah.
games.
I do find it a little surprising that you kind of enjoyed the delivery uh thing, because even when I put up zip lines, I
Okay,
hated
the
it.
reason why I did the delivery thing was because it gave me a reason to use zip lines. Because in reality, there is no
Right, yeah,
actual
that's
reason to
true.
use zip lines. There is genuinely not a single. You can just fast travel everywhere. The zip
Mhm.
lines only really serve the purpose of you get to do the delivery mini game. And so I wanted a reason to not play the game and to go set up zip lines. so that I can have this really satisfying zipline setup, and it's really cool, like. And so then I could go to the zip lines, and they go to all the farming spots, and it's really cool. And then you do the delivery thing, and it feels very satisfying because you had to work for it. It's like I put in the time to build the zipline thing, and now the delivery thing is really satisfying. It feels like a good payoff for the work I had to put in, the open-ended work I had to put in, because there's no restriction as to where you can put the zip lines. So it really does feel rewarding. But then you do it 15 times. So
right.
I only needed to set up the zip lines once. So once you do the delivery thing like 15, 20 times, it's just like, well, okay, now I'm just going through the motions.
Yep, that's
I've already gotten used to the zip lines being fun thing. Now it's just like, now I'm doing this purely for the stuff.
that's what happened for me, because I enjoyed setting up the zip lines for that, and for making gathering materials easier. But as soon as, like you said, after you do it like 5 or 10 times or more, it's like, oh, this is just a zipline check, and it becomes mind numbing.
Like, there needs to be, obviously I haven't played the game in forever, but I think there should be like at least something that requires you to like upkeep on your zip lines. Like, imagine if enemies attacked your zip lines. Like, imagine if you had to like go out of your way to defend zip lines. So you feel satisfied that you have protected your stuff. Maybe that's just how it is. Enemies will randomly spawn and attack your zip lines. So now you don't only need to set up the zip lines, you also need to set up defenses for the zip lines. Remember the turrets thing? Remember the turrets that are used in one game mode that I never played because I didn't give a shit? You remember that?
Yeah.
What if you could set those up to defend those zip lines that you need to go around and farm stuff? Like, I don't know, just give you a reason to extend that satisfaction of having a built-up zipline system. Of like, oh, well, I'm being attacked, so I gotta go zip over there real quick and defend and maybe rebuild if anything got destroyed. To have something that's dynamic, that forces you to make the ziplines feel fresh, rather than it just being like, you build your zipline system in the area once and now you're done. There's no reason to engage with zip lines anymore other than as a form of pseudo-fast travel, which is slower than the actual fast travel. So it's like...
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like with the new regions and encouraging you to do new zip lines for like the new gathering spots, like I think that is kind of enough, at least for me for now. The turrets are mainly used for farming the essences, which I was kind of wanting to talk about, like progression in general. That I do want to give Hypergriff some credit that for building new characters, they avoided a lot of the stuff that kind of irritates me in other gacha games. Like, they don't have weekly bosses, which are always a fun and engaging mechanic, being limited, having limited access to a very specific material per week.
Like Advent bosses, is they're
Yeah.
typically called. No,
and they don't force you to fight certain bosses. Like, usually in other gachas, it's like, oh, well, this character wants this boss material, or this character wants a different boss material. Like, I mean, I kind of get it because it encourages you to fight the bosses that the devs made and all of that, but I don't know. Like, it kind of just, when you have to do it, like, I don't know, like 10 plus times per character that uses that material, like, it gets old very quickly. Especially if it's a boss that takes a while to take down. So there are a lot of, like, oh yeah, and then they also don't have the infuriating artifact slash relic system. I despise that system with a passion.
yeah.
So there are a lot of things that I think that they have done well with, to avoid those pitfalls, but they still have like a crown like material, like the mark of preservance or whatever that you use for skill masteries. It's like, why? does this need to exist? Well, the easy answer is so that they can sell them, and also to encourage you indirectly to do events if you don't care about the pull currency. But they have been giving out enough that it hasn't been a problem yet. But if you're gonna be joining the game like in a year or two and then you want all of these characters and then it's like, oh hey, you have none of this material just because we artificially limited it and you can't farm it. It's just like, so that they did all of this stuff and then they did that. It's like, why?
I mean,
And
the
then
obvious answer is because they want to extend the artificial playtime of the game, give you a
that's
reason to log in.
fair.
Which, again, I think that's like the biggest criticism of Enfield as a game is that it is incapable of motivating you to play with good gameplay, and entirely has to rely on stuff to motivate you to play the game.
So while I do enjoy the gameplay, I still do because I have like more team options. But even then, I wish I could do more because I only have like two uh fairly built teams and the other characters that I've used. Because, well, one other criticism I have is that 6-star weapons have a significant power boost over 5-star weapons, which shouldn't be surprising, but at the same time, it's like when you have a character, or like I have a pseudo electric team, and they basically do like no damage because only one character has a 6-star weapon. And it's kind of not really worth leveling up 5-star weapons to 90. Like, I got them up to like 80, and the difference is, yeah,
So
kind of irritating.
obviously I haven't experienced, because I haven't played 1.1 or 1.2, and I haven't reached a point in progression where I've really had to worry about that kind of stuff. But I'm
Yeah.
not sure if what you're implying is like, is that explicitly a matter of 6-star weapons being like too strong, or is it a matter of enemy scaling being disproportionate for what's reasonable? And instead, enemy
um
scaling is assuming that you have 6-star weapons, which would not be healthy for the game because it restricts you into utilizing certain rarities that are obviously harder to get, as opposed to something like normal arknights, which doesn't restrict you from enjoying the game with non-highest rarity stuff.
I would say for like regular farming stages in the overworld, you can basically do whatever you want, but for the Umbral Monument, which is supposed to be like sort of the hard mode, but then they're coming out with contingency contract, which is kind of confusing because Umbral Monument was supposed to be like the hard mode stuff, so I don't know, but even in farming stages, like it does take considerably longer, and it's like, well, they're farming stages. You've done them, so many times before, so there's only so much there. So it's kind of hard to say. I wouldn't say like you need 6-star weapons, but I'm just saying like for like you feel a major difference between the rarities. Like the 6-star weapons have like 100 base attack, so it kind of doesn't matter what their actual abilities are because the base attack is so much better than the 5-star weapons that even like a relatively good 5-star weapon is gonna get outclassed, unfortunately. And then if you do the farming stages with, like I said, like with my pseudo electric team, or I guess it's mostly like pure electric. Like it takes that much longer, and it just doesn't feel that good. But I will say that for Umbral Monument, like they in the in not this current. Well, I haven't played enough of this current one, but the last one they made the enemies really bullet spongy, unfortunately. And
Sag.
and I was also gonna say, now that I mentioned Umbral Monument, is that one criticism that I think a lot of people had, not just us, was that there wasn't enough enemy variety, and they did add a bunch of enemies that try to add strategic depth to the gameplay. So like they have a certain enemy that throws out like a mist cloud, and if your operator gets caught in that or gets hit by it, you can no longer dodge, and I don't think you can run either. So that is quite a big quite a big debuff. And then they had
such a big debuff. They made the game fun. It's crazy. They made the
and then
game
they had
good.
and then they had another enemy which chains up another of your party members, and as far as I know, you can't avoid it in any way, and you have to break these chains in the arena in order to free your chained party member, or else they get one shotted. So that was kind of an interesting mechanic as well. And then they had this other dude that encouraged you to use other elemental reactions to like shorten the duration of his buff state. So they are definitely doing a good job, in my opinion, especially after the Neferith fight. Um, they're definitely doing a much better job on making more interesting enemy designs. But a big but is that in Umbral Monument, in the last season where they had the chain guys and the mist guys and whatever, not only did they have a ton of health, but also they work together in a way that if you're controlling a melee character, you were basically screwed, because like half the time, even if you directly sprint for each of the chains, as soon as they chained one of your party members, you still wouldn't have enough time to free them. So that was something that really annoyed me, because it's like, well, this is a great monster design, but it feels like I'm being punished even though that I am trying to do the mechanic correctly and everything. And then the in Rage Dude, they gave so much health and also does like constant area damage. And that was something that I also wanted to mention, is that like all of the healers pretty much are focused on healing the controlled character. Like you can add potentials to them, like our Drelia and Ember have potentials that heal other party members even when they're healing the controlled character. But if you don't have those potentials, well then good luck. And so you would have this enemy that has all this health, and even if you're playing well, they'll chip away at all of your different party members, and the game, like, healers aren't really designed to like upkeep that in a sense, even if you switch characters. So it kind of becomes a battle of attrition and he'll slowly wear you down if you don't have a good enough rotation for enough damage.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a frustrating moment for me, but could be that I'm just terrible at the game. That's entirely possible, but I I have made a Crushfield video, so I would like to think that I am at least okay at the game. But that
At
was
least you can admit it.
yeah,
At least you can admit it, because obviously there's a lot of people who will be like, "Oh
yeah,
no, it's not. It's not my fault. I can't get the results I want. It's clearly the game's fault. How dare
yeah.
they?" But I mean, I can understand where you're coming from, although I haven't experienced it, so I can't really add anything. Sadly, it's just like, I don't. You could be lying to me. You could 100% just be straight up gaslighting me into thinking these are real enemies. But I can at least say, because yeah, I remember that was a huge criticism I had of Enfield. It's just that like every enemy is a basic enemy. It's some that might hit you from range, and that's kind of it. And then you get to, and so everything just feels like very button mashy, especially in the overworld. And so it's nice that there is two enemies that encourage that reward you for positioning or punish you for relying on certain actions. That's something that's really good. But weirdly enough, I do think that a kind of enemy design that I think would not be good for Enfield is something that requires you to play with specific lineups. Because with how Enfield is formatted, you just have like a certain you have a limited number of archetypes to choose from. You have your physical archetype, you have your burn, your nature, your water. You know, you have your it's like corrosion. I already said nature.
Corrosion is from nature,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's like the nature, the
And
fire. There's like a water one.
and
Oh, no,
there's
not
only
water. There's like snow.
there's like only 2 or 3 nature characters anyway, so that's like barely usable. It's more of like a debuff
Yeah, but you
element.
have specific archetypal lineups that you kind of have to like cling to in order to do anything. And so if you are someone who just built a single lineup and then now enemies are designed to punish you if you are using that single lineup or require you to use a different lineup, well, that's not fair because of the nature of it being a gacha game. That's kind of stupid. It's not like something like Arknights where there are so many different operators that they're at a certain that the game doesn't start requiring things of you until you're at a point where you should have a large diversity of operators.
Right.
You want to be building certain operators that fulfill certain roles, but in Enfield you have to fulfill the entirety of a lineup. And you can either choose to upgrade more operators to make that lineup more optimized, or you can branch out into other lineups. So it's in a weird way it would be very I'm happy that they are giving more interesting enemies, but I do think that it's a weird kind of tightrope you have to handle, because the moment you start punishing a player for playing a specific lineup, now it becomes unnecessarily punishing.
Right.
And that I think can be a problem.
And the one enemy that encourages you to use other elements, you can still use physical. It's just that you don't have a way of shortening his enraged state, I think they call it. That gives him the increased attack. It gives him super armor, so he doesn't like get occasionally staggered when you do a combo.
Yeah,
Stuff
to
like
me that
that.
feels bizarre, because it's like, imagine if I'm me and I've only ever built the physical lineup, and I go into that fight, I am now being punished for not predicting that's how that enemy works. And so it's very bizarre, and now I'm not allowed to interact with the boss in the way that the game wants me to. And so I can't even engage with the game in the way that they intend.
Right.
So now it's just like, well, now I just have to brute force this.
So so when I used my electrical team against him, because it's like, oh yeah, I can just constantly have the electric stacks react to the burning stacks that he gets that you're supposed to react to in order to shorten his enraged state. Like, I did that, and I don't know, it's probably just me, but it didn't really feel like it made that much of a difference. And because my electrical team had much less damage, like, I was significantly worse off anyways. It's just
Interesting.
kind of ironic.
I do think that's a really interesting concept of forcing you to engage with like the elemental reactions. I think that's really cool. Or like there's natural sources of certain elements, and it rewards you for interacting with that. That's cool game knowledge. I think that's interesting. But as long as it's not a situation where it's like I feel overly punished for not engaging with it, then that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think they have reached that point yet.
I'm more saying this not as a what it is, but something I do fear it could be. So it should be something I think people should be more, I guess, open to. But let's talk about something I could probably add. You have many things you want to rant about today, and we're talking about, I don't even know what we're talking about. We're talking about enemy design. Lowy, just go off. Just go off.
Okay, so one last major segment before we get into the meat and potatoes of this Crushcast, because there is a lot that we want to talk about regarding the story. I want to talk about the quality of life that this game has.
Ooh.
So,
Did they add adding clues?
yes.
It took us.
They did. But I wanted to briefly talk about this because when the 1.1 like dev live stream thing happened and they were talking about, oh well, we're going to do all of these changes, all of these quality of life changes, the response, or at least from the few videos that were recommended to me, was, the praise of devs listened. And to me, while I am glad that they are doing a good number of quality of life changes, a lot of these changes should have been in the game at launch. There was no excuse not to have it. Like, they were already working on the auto clue thing in normal Arknights, so why didn't they think ahead to do it in Enfield on the launch? There's also the resupply for the manufacturing cabins for your experience and weapon materials, and all of these various different things. And the reason why this bugs me so much is because in OG Arknights, it took them 5 years for them to fix the base. It took them 6 years to finally remove the limit on practice plans. And to this day, in 2026, they still have day-specific locked farming stages. So while I am glad that Enfield has not waited 4 years before doing meaningful quality of life changes, I am also not going to have a standing ovation for them doing a lot of changes that should have already been in the game, frankly. Yeah. So for me, I was glad, but also I kind of had to roll my eyes at the whole like devs listen thing, because it's like, yes, I hope they are. And speaking from after playing 1.2, it seems like I am much more positive and hopeful for the game than I ever have been at this point. So I am glad that they're listening. But at the same time, like, doing quality of life changes for improving the user day-to-day experience should be the standard. It should not be like this monumentous occasion, but because gacha games, especially with Genshin, who is deathly allergic to quality of life changes, that is what people have just accepted. And yeah, I don't know I don't know how else to express it, but like I said, like, there are still things in OG Arknights 6 years later, going on 7 years later, that they still have not done yet. Like, it took them 6 years for them to finally add a way for you to see attack range changes. It's like,
doesn't work, by the way.
What? It doesn't?
No, on Swire, none of her skills are the correct ranges. No, every single skill on Swire the Elegant Wit just shows the tile, her tile. It doesn't show the extended range of her skills. It literally useless.
That's funny.
Also, the option doesn't even show up on certain operators that do have range increases. Hodor does not have it on his S3. So yeah, you're right, Lowy. Too bad it didn't fucking work. Because you're right when you say that it's like, it's so stupid that these weren't in the game to begin with. But at the exact same time, it makes me feel that it's like, there are actual issues with the game that are significantly larger than this tiny little shit that doesn't matter. But it gives this impression that, like, oh, we're doing something, guys. We're really, really working to make this experience better. When it's like, that's not why the experience sucks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I think that them adding instant clues to the base in Arknights is good. Them allowing me to, to refresh all my operators, that's good. I like that because that's not fun. I don't think doing any of that was fun to begin with.
That's why I said that they finally fixed the base, because the normal doing the rotations were very tedious, but you put up with it because you enjoyed the game.
Exactly. But now let's look at Enfield. What's unfun about Enfield? The clue thing is not even on my list. Like you have my list of
That's
things
true.
in Enfield that aren't fun. The fact you have to manually input clues is maybe item number 420. Everything else is infinitely more important to change, and instead you're changing the thing that I don't think a single person was actually complaining about. Like people, yeah, it's just like, oh, devs listened. Like, who the hell was complaining about this? I'm sure there are people were. It's like, oh man, this sucks. I hate having to input things. When it's like at the exact same time, there's a lot more fundamental issues that lie with the game that do need to be changed. And so I don't think that them fixing the least important thing should be celebrated. They should be criticized for continuing to ignore the actual issues.
Well, I'm kind of mixed on that whole deal because in many ways, like it does make the user experience better, but I do agree that that was definitely lower on the list. Like when you had, well, we haven't gone into the story yet, but Valley Force story in particular was a disaster.
It's fucking
It,
terrible.
to me, yes. And so and also the combat, especially if you only have one or two teams, can get very repetitive. And building a character, you have to build not only their level, you have to build their talents, you have to build like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that you have to pay for stuff in Enfield for character stuff that you just don't in normal arknights. Like, why do you need to pay for the stat increase for trust, and why do you have to pay for base skills? Like, what? Like, you have to pay like 20 credit for the final base upgrade on a character. It's like, what? Why? Or the trust thing is like, so, so there's and then you also have to deal with the weapon. You also have to deal with the essence to put in the weapon, and all that. And well, the essence system and the artificing artificing system is leagues ahead of the artifact and relic system. Like, there's still a lot of RNG in it, and I find those systems unenjoyable to interact with because they just feel like artificial ways of extending the playtime rather than, you know,
Yeah.
being able to be done. Like, eventually you'll reach there, but it's like I've been working on essences and I only have like 7 out of 9 for multiple stats on any of the essences that I actually do get that perfectly fit each weapon. So it just, yeah.
I think we could get into a larger discussion about like the whole why is there so many of this stuff, because the thing is that gacha games kind of existed in a completely different mobile game era where everything was Clash of Clans, everything was time gated, everything was this and that. But now we're in like a new era for mobile games where you
Yeah.
just sell porn to people and then they pay for it with random chance. So you don't need to time gate a lot of this stuff anymore. And the only thing you really need to be the only thing that you necessarily need to time gate is your sanity or your energy system. And that's kind of it. That's the only thing you really need to be time gating nowadays. But we still run into all of these issues of just like, well, this is unnecessary and it feels outdated. This feels like a 2015 kind of gacha system, not a 2023 gacha system. And so
like the day specific farming stages.
Exactly,
That
yeah.
was a 2010s design.
Yeah, that's something that, yeah. And so when the thing is that kind of stuff is cemented itself into the gacha genre as a whole. There's no real reason to actually do that anymore. You're not in, there's other things that incentivize players to come back. Even your daily thing, that's mainly why you do it. So you log in, you do your dailies, and you get out. That alone is enough to incentivize people. And so when you still have a lot of this stuff remaining in Enfield, it feels like it exists to pander towards gacha fans in general. And that gets into a larger discussion of like, well, why is Enfield the way that it is? Well, because Griffline wants to pander towards the gacha crowd. They want to pander specifically towards the very large crowd of gacha fans. And so they do design the game in a way where it's very similar to, where it just follows the cookie cutter idea of what a gacha game is supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And
And
taking a lot of inspiration
from Genshin, from
Genshin and Withering Waves
yeah,
because they're so popular and everything.
it's less of a proper passion project and more of, I'm sure it was a passion project at one point, but now it's most certainly, this game exists not for Arknights fans. It exists for Genshin fans. And that's why because the thing is that your average gacha player, they don't play the game for the gameplay. They play the game for the community. They play the game for the social aspect of it. And so they need an actual, like, motivate. They are so used to this kind of environment. They're used to the memes. They're used to the discussion. They already
Mm-hmm.
know how to play Enfield before they ever start playing the game. So they don't need to learn anything. They already know exactly what to do because it's no different than the hundreds of other gacha games they played before. It doesn't matter that those gacha games are shit. Your average gacha player doesn't have the best taste. They're playing these games because it's just like every other gacha game, because they're used to the community. They're used to that social aspect to it. It's the new best thing. And so now they're hopping onto it, and Hypergriff doesn't want to, or Griffline, I guess, doesn't matter, doesn't want to alienate them. They don't want to alienate this very large audience of players who are playing Enfield not for Enfield, but because it's a gacha game. Because it's the new Wuwa. It's the new Zenless Zone Zero. It's the new Genshin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is the, like, as chud as it sounds to say, it's like that is the reason why these systems are still in the game, is crazy enough. It's not because they need to be in the game. I understand why sanity exists in Arknights. There's a good reason for that, because otherwise you could just farm everything in like 3 weeks and there's no reason to play the game anymore. Obviously not for everyone, but I get why. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mobile free to play game. I get it. You have to monetize something. But there's these extra things that don't need to be in the game. And
Yeah, like
my crackpot
the
theory
yes.
is that those exist to cater towards, that those exist to make gacha players feel more comfortable in the game.
Like the essence system and the
Yes.
artifice system, and then also one thing that I was kind of disappointed by, and I mean I shouldn't be surprised, but for some reason when I first started Enfield, I was kind of hoping that weapons didn't have potentials for some reason, because it's like, you know, how they did the weapon banner system, making weapons sort of free,
Yeah.
but they also don't really give enough arsenal tickets either, which is a whole different discussion. But since they've made weapons essentially free in a sense, I was kind of hoping that, well, maybe not hoping, but there was just like a part of my mind. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if weapons, like for once, weapons also didn't have potentials? And I don't know. That was probably like a brain fart moment, but to ever have that idea, but
No,
that's
I
just
kind of agree.
another thing.
I kind of agree, but in like a different way. Because that's like the current weapon system in Enfield is, they're basically just like modules, except you have to unlock them
True.
separately and then you equip them to operators. There is just a best weapon to put on operators. And so I think that is a gigantic missed opportunity where it, each weapon isn't a new thing that you can use to modify the gameplay of an operator. It's just, here is the operator's module. Go find it. Go pull for it. Then go upgrade it.
Yeah.
And then you can use this operator's module. That's basically what it feels like. And so it doesn't add an extra element of experimentation. It doesn't add an extra bit of gameplay depth. It's purely just go find the correct thing and apply it to the operator, and therefore you're good. I think it's, and in your case, it would be like, well, if there wasn't, because there's only like 12 weapons in the game. Like, there's not that many. I don't know if that's the exact number, but you know what I mean. There's not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe like 2 per rarity and like 1 6-star. There's probably more 6-stars, but I think I remember
Yeah,
only being like
for
one
like
6-star.
their for their playstyle, like you
Yeah.
have two physical 6-star swords, you have like two physical 6-star great swords, like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sort of thing, and then you have an arts damage version.
Yeah, and so it is just, and they're often very just catered towards specific players, or towards specific operators, and so there's no point to the system entirely. It is purely just an extra element of. That's why they don't need to monetize the weapon system, because there isn't anything to it. You don't need to monetize it because who gives a shit? People are just pulling for weapons in the same way that they're grinding for materials, that they're doing their dailies. It's just to make things stronger, to give them a sense of
Mm-hmm.
progression. I don't feel excited to equip a weapon, because I could imagine if every single weapon did something like different or spiced up the gameplay a little bit. Like imagine if there was a sword that's just like, oh, every third strike has a chance to inflict a thing of burn or whatever, where it's like, oh, I
Oh,
could put that on this thing, and that seems like that'll be cool. Oh, I could play it with this thing, and that changes how I play the unit. Like, oh, what if there was a sword that made them, whenever they activated a skill, they lost a bunch of HP, but then they gained this other but they gained like a really big shield, and it's like they don't have that, and so the gameplay continues to
yeah.
just be shit and repetitive and boring, because again, why aren't the weapons like just operators? Well, because they don't have to monetize it, and you can use that as a selling point. Like, hey, the weapon gacha is free, but the weapon gacha isn't gacha. It's just modules. It's modules you have to. It's modules with extra steps.
the 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 kind of funny thing in some ways is that in OG Arknights, like now that you mentioned modules, like some of the 6 stars that have 2 different modules, they do affect their playstyle in various
Hundred
different
percent.
ways.
100%.
Like for Mastima, for an example, you have one module that completely focuses hard on her crowd control, and then the other one is completely focused on her buffing all of the other casters' SP recovery.
Yeah.
So they completely change how what strengths of the character is emphasized, whereas in yeah, weapons are pretty much just find the one that synergizes with the playstyle of the character the most, and then you get the most stats or the most damage as a result. They don't really change the gameplay in any way,
Yeah.
how you would play with them otherwise.
And again, that's just kind of the biggest issue with Enfield as a whole, is that it's just like 90% of the game is stuff you do to affect the other 10% of the game, but the other 10% of the game I don't give a shit about. Well, actually, that's wrong. It's not 90% of the game affects 10% of the game. It's 70% of the game affects 10% of the game, with the other 20% of the game being the base that also affects the
Yep.
other 10% of the game. And so, what you want to talk about the base? Want to talk about the base, Lowy?
Uh, the factory.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, you get the stock bills to to buy stuff to make your characters better.
Yeah.
I am going to go out and say that throughout my playtime playing Enfield, the factory system has been hard carrying the game, in my personal opinion.
That's what it was for me when I was playing it. I enjoyed
Yeah.
the base, but I did eventually run into a point where I'm just like, I don't care anymore. And I talked to you about it a few days ago, where it's like
Hmm.
eventually, because I remember when we start Wu Ling, you get access to Shiranite, and you have access to the new water system. And it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
is kind of cool. I can use the water to make certain drinks, and then I have to deal with the water separately. And like, okay, this is interesting. It's adding an extra new layer to things. But
Hmm.
what made the Wuling base just, I was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Is that okay, I guess to frame this, we can go back to the Valley 4 base, which was handled so much better. Not perfect, obviously, tutorial
Hmm.
field, haha, but
Yeah.
ignoring tutorial field, the Valley 4 base was handled very well, and it's because of how the progression worked. When you start off, you have very, very, very simple formulas. It's just like, okay, grind this, mix that with something else, you have your product. It doesn't take up a lot of space, it's really easy to
Hmm.
manage, and you can build off of it very easily. And so as you get more complicated formulas, you're going to have more credits, and you use those not credits, the stock bills, and use the stock bills to expand your area, and you gain access to the bus, and that just makes everything significantly more satisfying because you have more
Mm-hmm.
options at your disposal to make your production lines much better. And the more areas that you capture, I guess, you know what I mean, like get the secondary
Yeah,
bases,
the
that
settlements.
that gives you settlements, yeah, that gives you more places to build and to give that kind of stuff. And so that progression felt very good. However, once you get to Wuling, the progression doesn't restart. The progression continues, but your space is still very restricted. I remember when I got
Mm-hmm.
to Wuling, you have the base, or you have you have Tang. You have Tang Tang's base as a settlement, and then I had the
Mm-hmm.
main settlement in Wuling. I, in order for me to make my production line work, I dedicated the entirely of Tong Tong's base to producing one resource, because because in order for it to work at max efficiency, I needed to use every single belt that base gave me access to, and
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have access to the bus yet, and so I had, that entire place was dedicated towards the production of one thing, and then at the actual Wuling base, I barely had enough room to do what I needed to do.
Right.
And it was very just disgusting, as weird as it sounds, to try and put everything together, because rather than it being like, here's a small thing, then like rather than like a Valley 4 where here's a small thing, then here's a slightly larger thing, and you just connect it to that, here it's, you have, just make large thing, because you're not going back, you're not having simpler recipes to build off of, you're going directly into these complex recipes, but you have like no resources, and you have
Mm-hmm.
no preset environment. And so trying to create all of that just right off the bat really just makes the whole base building experience just awful and really not fun. And that's just kind of the point where I'm like, I don't want to have to dedicate, like I needed to build up all of the bus in order to really get started on the base. And then at that point it's just because they do the bus differently in Wuling, but
Mm-hmm.
you obviously need to upgrade more of it. But once I got it out, it's just like, okay, well, I need all these materials to do this and this and this. And it became so just unfun at that point because all of these combinations were so space consuming and just complicated. I just didn't have fun with the base anymore because it was no longer about gradual expansion that was satisfying to pull off. It was go from 0 to 60 right away and figure out what the fuck to do with that. And I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I think, and I remember a big thing that you were talking about in our discussion was that um, not only were you limited on like trying to get the buses, but also like the physical actual area
Yeah,
was
yeah.
tiny because you have to, of course, use your stock bills to upgrade how big the area is. Well, when you have no stock bills and you're trying to make materials in order to sell them for stock bills, you don't have the you don't have them to upgrade the actual area of the base either. So I do understand that, and I still enjoy the factory gameplay, although I do have to mention that for me personally, like I've been getting into building the heavy sheer knight stuff, and you have to use a bunch of different buildings together with the new acid pools that you can get liquid out of. You have to mix it with stuff, you have to purify whatever you make, and then you have to use waste products in a certain way in order to create other materials. Like, for me, I think I enjoyed like the simpler base stuff as well that Valley 4 offered because in Wuling, once you get to like Heavy Sheer Knight, like that was something that I put off for a while because it's like, okay, I need to have like five different buildings that are big and I need to connect pipes to all of them to move liquid around in order to make one product. And or one or two products that in order to make stuff. And for me, I just thought that that was a bit much. Like there's currently an event going on that's just about over that um you don't have to make heavy sheer knight for it if you don't want to, but there's a product that you can make that sells for more that you all use heavy shear night for every step of that product, basically. Um, and I had to spend like in a like 1 or 2 days of multiple hours at a time in order to figure it out because I didn't want to, like, for me figuring it out myself was is a lot of the fun of the base stuff. So I mean, in a sense I'm kind of putting it on myself, but also the tutorials, while they are much better in Wuling, you know,
Yeah.
they also only do so much. Like I am definitely like a visual learner as well, so in the sense of I learn by fiddling with stuff on my own.
Yeah.
So so for me also the base has kind of like lost a bit of its, a lot of its, well, not a lot, but some of it's fun because like I said, you there's so many moving parts now that making the thing that you want to make is kind of cumbersome now because of the increased complexity that they have brought up the factory into.
Yeah.
And especially one problem that I had was that I kept running into issues where, oh, this one building um empties out liquid at a different rate. So then it's like, oh, well, one thing might get full of liquid and then it stops working. But then the other thing that I'm pouring the other liquid into from that building is now not producing enough, or something along those lines. Like my whole production line would get clogged just because one thing would produce just enough liquid to clog something by maxing out its capacity or whatever, and that was kind of annoying as well.
Yeah, I think
So I had
that
to
the,
to figure that out.
I think that's very similar. I'm doing the interrupting thing again, haha. But I do think it's very similar to the issues that I've had because you're talking about how it's like, oh, the rate at how it's emptying is stupid, and I had a lot of similar issues with production, where it's more like
Mm,
if I don't have my production optimized, things will get clogged. And I hate logging in, having everything be clogged, and now I have to go
you're
through this
right.
extra
Yeah.
step of emptying everything. And so if everything isn't optimized, it's an extra step of annoyance that I have to go through in order for everything to be back up and running. And because everything gets clogged, I don't know how much material I'm losing out on producing. And so if
Right.
you
Yeah.
aren't doing things optimally, if you aren't matching all of the speeds correctly, and nothing gets clogged, but nothing, you need to make sure you're maximizing uptime on certain productions. You don't want anything to be idle, and at the exact same time you don't want anything to clog, or else you're losing out on so much. And
Mm-hmm.
so that entire process of kind of requiring things be optimal in order for your AFK base to work is, it's not, it's fun at first, but as you said, once it gets so complicated where you have to deal with like these massive these massive systems that all feed into each other, that's when it no longer becomes really engaging, because it's not like, ooh, I want to optimize this so it's more optimal for me. It's, I have to go through this cumbersome process so that it doesn't fuck up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind
There
of, yeah.
was I was working on a production line, and one of the buildings would make just a little bit of acid, but it wasn't enough to power anything that required acid. And I completely forgot that there was a certain building that would drain the material back into its, like, where you get it from. So I kept using like fluid tanks and let them fill up over time and then like empty them because I was like, I didn't, because I completely forgot about that one specific building that would periodically drain over time. So that was,
Okay, well
yeah, like,
that's a skill issue. That's a skill issue,
yeah,
Lowy.
that's true. I can't deny that. But yeah, like you have these big production lines, and then you'll have like one little thing that
that gets clogged. You got to redo the whole
that gets
fucking thing.
clogged, and then and then you have to spend like half an hour troubleshooting, trying to figure out like how to make it so it doesn't clog,
Yeah,
so
and
you can yeah.
I am not against that gameplay. I think that's fun. But what sucks is that it's kind of required of you. There aren't moments where it's just like
Mm-hmm.
I just want to run an unoptimized system because then there's a lot of shit that's not going to work. So because like the moment you have one thing optimized, you have to optimize everything else because those things feed into other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's weird to say, but it's like I enjoy the optimization thing. I just don't like it when it's forced onto me, if that makes sense.
If you feel obligated to do it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because now it's like now I don't get to play the super fun gameplay of spamming square button, and now I have to do all of this random shit so that my stuff doesn't get clogged. And so when I wake up tomorrow, I actually have materials to sell rather than like, oh shit, at 2 a.m. the thing got clogged and I lost all my production.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's again, the base is the best part of Enfield, but it sadly reached a point in Wuling where it's just like I'm not having fun anymore. This isn't worth it. I'm just done.
Mm-hmm. And it also brings the question of, now that they're doing like liquid and stuff, like how are they going to expand this in the future? Is it going to get even more complex and stuff like that? Because even though Enfield like advertised its factory as being a big thing, like is it like if it I kind of feel like, at least as someone who doesn't play factory games, that if it gets much more complex for that, like it might, have me like nod off that
Yeah.
gameplay, if it gets much more complex than it is. But I am well aware that's a personal thing. So
Yeah. But something that is like interesting to think about is like is every new region only really going to innovate on the base and not the gameplay? Because the thing is that the actual combat in Wuling is no different than the combat in Valley 4. It's the
pretty much,
enemies are
yeah.
slightly different, but the fundamental shit of what you're doing is still the same. And so it
Mm-hmm.
feels like the only difference between Wuling and Valley 4, besides aesthetics, obviously, is that Wuling has a different factory and you have to deal with this other thing. And so it makes me think that it's like, oh, we get a new area. The gameplay is going to stay the same, but we get a new shit we have to worry about in the factory. And
Mm-hmm.
another thing I just kind of remembered is that there is like very little actual connectivity between each region's base. The only real connectivity is you can move some of your items from one to the other, but
Right.
they
Yeah.
exist independently of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's just like, is that it? Like, there is no grander plan that you're really looking towards because all of the settlements are individual, and so now on top of that, you have different regions that all have individual settlements that you're doing. You're not working towards anything greater. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a kind of less motivation to really do anything because it's like I went from like really having fun with the Valley 4 base and then I go into Wuling and I'm like I don't want to do this. I already did all this in Valley 4.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go back to Valley 4 and do this. I'm not
Right.
working towards
Yeah.
anything greater outside of just like make stuff to make cuz again, I already made all my settlements leveled up, so why do I have to do it again? It's just
Yeah, that's
more
true.
stuff to do. You know what I mean? It's like I don't
Mm-hmm.
really want to develop Tang Tang's base because I already went through upgrading like 4 of them. My progression was just reset. And the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that's really different is that, oh, I can import some resources from Valley 4, except that's not a consistent resource increase. It's temporary, meaning that it's manual, meaning I can't rely on it for production because that'll fuck up my production lines. So it's if anything, the transferring's a handicap. It's not like oh I can just use resources from Valley 4. It's I have to manually import them, and then if the manual import runs out, I have to manually re-import them.
Yeah, there is a system that you can make it so it periodically, continually transfers items to the other region, but it's only one resource. So and it's
Yeah,
not like a huge amount. So yeah, you basically run into the same thing where it can help some production lines,
I get
but
that.
it's
Yeah,
not like a huge difference either.
yeah. Because I do remember there being something like that, but generally it is just like they're two different things, and what you do in Valley 4 is here's a different flavor of what you did in, or what you do in Wuling is a different flavor of what you did in Valley 4, and you just have to do
Mhm.
everything again. And it's like, well, I don't want to do everything again. I want to progress more. I don't want to reset from 0 and just do it again just cause.
Yeah, and then there's also the Wuling main material is with the Sheer Knight. It's like, oh yes, I love having 20 different production lines purely for the carbon in order to make Sheeranite
Yeah,
because everything
yeah.
requires
Yeah, no,
Sheeranite.
cause I think that's what I was producing in the in Rossi's base,
Yeah,
in
that makes
Tang's
sense.
base.
Yeah.
It was just carbon, and so like it was just fucking annoying. It's I've already kind of said my thing. It's just like there's no grand point to it. It's just do the base again, and I'm already done with it. I already did it. Now I do it again. I don't give a shit. I'm done. I'm not playing this game anymore. uh, okay, want to talk about the
Yeah.
story? We're an
Yeah,
hour
yeah,
in.
let's
Let's talk about the
let's
story.
get into the point everybody has been waiting for, the story.
Okay,
So,
so I
we,
did. This isn't about. Well, you will get into the 1.1 and 1.2 story. I can't add anything to
yeah.
that, but we are going to talk about the waifu stories,
Oh
the
yes.
little extra event stories for Leviathan, for um I don't fucking remember their names. Angelina,
Yvonne, yeah,
yeah,
Angelina's
Yvonne,
one.
and
Wasn't there like a fourth
there
one
was a
in
fourth
1.0?
one.
I don't.
Did neither of us fucking remember?
Maybe
No,
it
there
was
was the
so.
Angelina one. There's no. How do we just not remember?
Yeah, it was.
Wolfgang. Wolfgang.
Oh yeah,
Not
yeah.
was his name Wolfgang?
Oh, Wolfguard, yeah.
Wolfgard. Yeah, I'm like, his name's not
Close
fucking
enough.
Wolfgang.
Close
Wolfgang
enough.
Amadeus Mozart. Like that's his fucking name. Yeah. Okay. So I
So,
guess that's probably a good starting point because
yeah, do
Wolfgard's
you
story
wanna?
was so nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The entire point of the whole thing with the story was that it was him and this guy who is he's working with the Bone Crushers, but he's actually secretly invading them. But he's also someone you can't trust. So, oh my gosh, what if he's lying to us? And then it turns out he was lying to us,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was it.
Wolfguard was like even saying in the story like he knew that he was going to betray him, but he wanted to find out more information, so he was kind of just playing along.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
so
one thing I the reason why I didn't mind Wolfguard's story was that it felt like set up to a future story, and that is because it showed that even within the pact, that they basically had internal split, because they had a group of them that didn't trust Enfield
yeah.
and the people Enfield work with, and then you had the people on Wolfguard and Rossi's side that do want to help Enfield. So it felt like setup, but the problem that I have with that now that they had 1.1 and 1.2 is that they've basically already told that story at this point with Wuling and the Stockade, because they had them fight each other for similar, I don't know, I feel like it's similar enough reasons that I feel like if they go through with that now, that they're just going to be retreading either the same story or so similar ground that it's it's any intrigue that it had is kind of lost.
I remember in the Wolfguard story. I need you to help gauge my memory because this was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember there were like it was him, the guy who betrayed, because they were all like it was him and like two other guys were like friends. They grew up together. One of them became like a doctor or something like that. And I remember there was like this sort of psychological shift, this like philosophical shift between the two that like caused some sort of like break in friendship. And I remember that being really, really interesting to me, but they never do anything with it. And that's what kind of really frustrated me, is that they set up a really cool like character dynamic that I can like barely remember. I just remember knowing that there was a really cool character dynamic I was a really big fan of. But it just ended with like, oh, the guy was betraying Wolfguard died, and that's it. And I was like surprised it ended, because I'm like, you're not done. You set it up and then you're just over.
Yeah, that does sound vaguely familiar. But honestly, unfortunately, I don't remember too much about it. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Wolfguard, because I completely forgot his story off the top of my head.
The fact that I can barely remember this, I think, that does it's telling of the story, that it was just nothing burger and forgettable, because the entire thing was just like, let's go into this cave and do the same shit that we dodge fire bars. You know, it's just like the Steam. It's no different than the Steam. And so that's it. It's like, there's nothing else to it. It was just so nothing.
You know what?
And that's like the least no, that wasn't the least that was the least offensive bad one. That was like weirdly enough the second best, despite it sucking.
Right. Well, another thing that kind of irritated me on that story specifically, I do remember, is that like you said, the Wolfguard and this guy was supposed to be like childhood friends, and they even made a point of saying like, oh well, Wolfguard doesn't usually like really connect with people very well and stuff like that, or something along those lines. Like, he doesn't make friends very easily, so having like a close friend is like not the usual thing. So it's supposed to be this big deal, but then he ends up killing him. But at the end, when he's like after he buries him, I suppose, like, there isn't really a much emotion from him either.
Yeah, it was.
It's like, oh yeah, I was expecting him to be the spy or infiltrator, or whatever.
And then it's like, okay, so none of this had a point.
Yeah, and like I said, like, the only reason for me that I somewhat liked it was that it felt like it was set up for a much bigger plot that would happen down the line.
Sense. Yeah.
But then, like I said, with Wu Ling and the Stockade attacking each other, basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So if they do that again, like, the novelty isn't really going to be there, and it's going to feel like they're retreading the same ground. So that really took away basically the main thing that stood out to me for his story.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to one that we can probably remember a little more. Let's go to, from the second worst to the third worst. Let's go to the Angelina story. What's her name?
Yeah.
What's Angelina's name? Gilberta.
Gilberta, yeah.
Gilberta's story was not about her. It wasn't
not
about
really,
her.
no.
It was about a man who made this really cool invention that turned it turned that like tar-like stuff. I forgot what it was called.
The blight.
The blight, yeah. Like, I don't remember. I think it cleansed the blight, or it like examined it. It was something related to the blight. And it was him, and he worked on it with this woman, and they really connected, and it was like the first time he ever found someone who really connected with him with this. But then one day she disappears, and to keep her memory, or no, it was like she disappeared with the thing, but to like, as like a message to him, she named it something related to like their relationship. And it was a story that was infinitely more interesting than anything Gilberta had. And
right, yeah.
It had nothing to do with Gilberta. And all Gilberta did was like deliver stuff, because she's a messenger, and like that's what set up this plot. And then at the very end, there was like this moment where I guess we're supposed to tie into the engineer and his girl with the administrator and Gilberta. And it just turned into this waifu slop, like, oh my god, Enderman, I love you so much, you're amazing, and then they float in the air and it's
Yeah.
this really cool animated sequence, and it's like, but there's no point to that. The story was cool. That had nothing to do with Gilberta. That could have been told through like paper slips in the like they didn't need to be animated. That could have just been paper slips that you just find to uncover that story in the
Yeah.
main like game. And the entire time it just felt like this is what it no, this isn't what Gilberta fans, this is what Angelina fans like enjoy. Cuz Gilberta isn't a character. She's Angelina.
Yeah.
She
And and after we talk about like the 1.0 side stories, I do kind of want to touch a little bit on the clones because we didn't
yeah, we can do that.
have the time to talk about that last time.
Because I know there was some, because the main like character drive you really get from the clones is the fact that they know that they're clones, kind of. And there was something with Gilberta about like her worrying that she's gonna forget the administrator for some fucking reason. That nothing to do with her being a clone. That's just like, I would hate to forget these kind of moments that I have with people. And it's like, why is that something that's being brought up? We haven't set up a situation where it's like, oh, she got contracted with the blight or something and that's going to erode at her brain, or it's like, oh, she had
Oh,
this
that
experience with something that like there's
that would
nothing
have
that like there's nothing that would reasonably give her the fear that she's just going to forget this stuff outside of the story that we told earlier with the guy and his love. But again, that implies the relationship between Gilberta and the administrator is romantic, which is really fucking cringe.
the thing
Because the administrator isn't a character, they're a self-insert.
the thing for Gilberta, I think the only thing like I can sort of tie into that or understand for her character is that it sounded like because she's a messenger, she didn't like directly, she didn't feel like she was, or either it was before she was a messenger or something, that she didn't feel like she helped the people in the civilization band enough, and that I think she was worried about forgetting her Angelina memories too. I don't remember, but like you said, like at the very end, we've only known Gilberta for like an hour at the best, maybe an hour and a half, and then she's like all over Edmund for some reason. It's
Yeah, the
like
thing is,
I
so,
hardly know you.
like, yeah, it was like, I don't even know if it was like an hour long, but it was also like, yeah, we were with her, but it wasn't about her.
Right, yeah.
It's like the whole
Like
point is like, oh, I'm being nice, I'm trying to help people, but it's like it wasn't about her at all. It was about because again, I'm not even the reason why I think this is actually no, I would say this story is probably better than Wolfguard's because at least the sub story inside of the story was more interesting than anything Wolfguard had going for it. It just had nothing to do with fucking Angelina, and the ending was just stupid. It's
so
just
so
like,
so do you want to go into the best 1.0 side story, or should we talk about
let's talk
the
about
other one?
let's talk about the other one because I probably don't remember as much from it as I do the actually good one. And so the Yvonne story was just the worst. The thing is that I remember really fucking hating it when I read it, and I don't remember as much as I did. But I do vaguely remember the main point being is that like she deserved nothing. There was nothing that she actually earned throughout the entirety of the story. It was purely just like completely self-fulfilling shit that she did. She was the reason why all of this was happening. And so she felt it was supposed to be emotional, but she caused all this, so it doesn't fucking matter. But again, it's so vague. I don't really remember much of it because I just fucking hated it.
I remember distinctly like the main reason why you didn't like it was that even though that she had this emotional moment, her problem is that she had a hard time connecting with people because of her personality, the way that she works, is productive and whatever, and all of that. So she had a really hard time at certain companies, and then she went to Enfield because they had a lot more freedom, and then she actually was able to make friends and stuff. And the reason why you didn't like it was that at the end of the story, it's like she had this emotional moment feeling bad about Tata and everything, but she didn't seem to learn anything from it or put a value on the human relationships,
Yeah.
friendships that she had.
I'm looking at my Discord rant right now. I pulled it up, and I now remember
Oh.
what I fucking hated about it. Is that the entire thing is supposed to be revolved around why she feels very sad and lonely because she can't form relationships with actual people, and so that leads her into relying on her robots to kind of fulfill that need. And so she puts so much emotional weight on Tata's sacrifice, but she doesn't learn anything from it. She doesn't learn to cherish the relationships she has with with real people. She doesn't learn from Tata's sacrifice that maybe she can find strength in protecting people, and that gives her that emotional sentiment to cherish those relationships. Instead, she
Hmm.
puts so much weight on Tata's sacrifice that she could have prevented it somehow, and that because she didn't, she's just this emotional mess. And
Hmm.
at the very end, like they do the calligraphy, not calligraphy, they do like the wall painting. That's not the very end, but that's part of the end. Like they do this wall painting. That's like the whole premise for all of this, and it's so
Hmm.
focused around Tata. So like Yvonne can't get over Tata. She physically can't.
And wasn't there also a thing at the end where she decides to make a second
Yeah, she
Tata,
decides
like
to make
just
like another
because?
Tata, and it's like she doesn't learn to cherish human relationships. She just learns to stay with the past. And I now, because yeah, looking back at my rant, my main issue was the writers were incapable of giving her any actual character flaws. They refused to acknowledge that her over reliance on robots as like a social output is a bad character thing. They refuse to acknowledge her immaturity as a person as a character flaw. They just see it as a quirk. Her being all
Hmm.
obsessed with robots is quirky. You know, her doing all of this stuff to bring Tata back is quirky when it's like she's just socially inept and she's incapable of forming proper connections with people. But that's never actually showed. That's never actually shown in the story. She just
Hmm.
says that. And so it's like the writers don't want to make Yvonne out to have character flaws. They just want her to be this pristine, pink, perfect little girl that everyone can simp over. And so it made the entire thing frustrating because she's not a fun character. She's obnoxious. It's quite obvious
Hmm.
what the point of her is. And so she
Yeah.
doesn't really have a passion. Like I remember the thing was called like Love, like Scream Love in the Prototype, and the whole like there's this underlying theme of screaming out something that you're passionate about. But she never
Hmm.
found that. That was never
Yeah.
clarified. She never had a genuine passion for anything. The reason why she's so obsessed with all of this stuff is because she just is. It's not about helping people. It's not about like she didn't learn from Tata's sacrifice that there are greater things than just having this robot that you can talk to or having cute faces. She doesn't
Hmm.
learn that there is something to cherish in protecting people or to be something greater than yourself. And so it was
Hmm.
just such a frustrating experience. And I remember like I looked it up in my server, and it's just like the first thing I sent was her story made me hate her more than I did already, because it was emblematic of who she is as a character, in that she's not a character, she's an archetype. She is the archetype of the bubbly, cute, quirky character and nothing else.
And that is really saying something because I think I can say for both of us, Yvonne was a character that we were not a fan of.
Of course not, no. And
Like it is,
I don't want people
she.
to think though that I went into these stories wanting to hate them, because
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't hate Wolfgard and Angelina's stories. There were parts of it I did
Hmm.
like, but Yvonne's story was the only one I just actually hated everything with.
Hmm.
And so it was just like, obviously I disliked her to begin with, but I was perfectly fine with being, because I wanted to like her. I did. I don't want to dislike things. No
Right.
one
Yeah.
wants to dislike things. I went into this wanting to have a reason to care about her, but I came out with more reason to dislike her, because the whole point of the story isn't to actually characterize her. It's to make you feel sorry for her on a surface level. It's for her to make you, to give you that tiny emotional little beat of just like, oh, she's so sad and tragic. She's just a poor little baby. I need to protect her. When in reality, it's just like, it's all self-imposed. None of it was deserved.
And I was going to say, for my experience, I was more positive about her story, and I think it was because I was kind of swept up in the spectacle, because um they built up a lot of that, um had a lot of built up to the final moment where she is emotional. And there was also parts at the beginning of her story that I liked, like showing the people from the UWST settlement, like mourning the people who passed away after the Angloy attack,
Yeah,
and the
yes.
Landbreaker attack. Like, that was a big moment for me personally, even though that it had nothing to do with Yvonne. But down the line with Yvonne, even though that Yvonne is an archetype that I am not a fan of. But when it came to the end of her story, where she had that emotional moment, like, it was, finally I kind of, this probably isn't the right way to say it, but it's like her bubbly, like, quirky face that she puts on, like, she set aside for a moment to actually be feel more real, I guess. And it was
Yeah.
clear, like, throughout the whole thing, that she cared about Tata, but in the main story she was like, nah, that didn't care. It fulfilled its duty, and I'm fine with it. So, like, to actually show that yes, she did actually care, like, to me, I was kind of swept up in that and was kind of refreshing about it. But after watching you replay it, like, I really get what you were talking about. Like, she didn't learn, and that was something that kind of flew over my head, and I was more positive about her storyline, um
I ruined it. I
as a
ruined your
result of that.
enjoyment. I'm sorry.
Well,
Because, yeah, it's frustrating. I was going to say something that I immediately fucking forgot. God damn it.
how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a frustrating experience. Because, again, I don't want to hate Yvonne. And no one wants to hate things. I think if you
Mhm.
openly invite hate into your life, that's stupid. But it was just entirely just frustrating thing. Of just like, because
Mhm.
no, I do remember what I was gonna say now. Because I think a big reason why that final scene almost worked is because the voice acting is so fucking good. I don't like
Oh, that.
Yvonne's voice. I don't like it normally,
Mhm.
but the voice acting in the final scene was so unbelievably good. I think I even remember complimenting it on stream. And so I can't blame
Mhm.
people for feeling emotional then, because the voice acting was so good.
Mhm.
But when I was watching it, I just can't think of a reason to care. Because
Mhm.
you're just showing me an anime girl crying. You're not really showing me why she's crying, because I can't believe why she's crying. She's crying because Tata's gone. Okay, why? Because she was over reliant on like her robots to fulfill a social and emotional need. Well, okay. So why doesn't she like learn anything from that? Instead, we're just supposed to
Mhm.
sympathize with her that she's a loser who only talks to robots. You know what? That actually makes perfect sense. Because the moment you criticize Yvonne for talking to fictional characters, now all of Yvonne's fans get criticized because they're emotionally reliant on fictional characters. Look at that. That's why they didn't
Oh,
do it. Because they would have had to criticize the entirety of the people playing the fucking game.
oh man, you're criticizing. Well, you're playing in hot water there.
That's a joke. That's a fucking joke. That's half a joke. It's a joke. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. If you're mad, that means that you're exactly who I'm talking about. Come on. Come on.
Well, I think like you said, like, the voice acting was really good, and it's like, it was easy to be swept up in that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it was very
I can
easy for
100% understand
yeah.
someone getting emotionally swept up in the moment, even though I don't believe there was any substance to it. It was just a
Yeah.
video of an anime girl crying with really good voice acting.
But like imagine a scene like instead of her crying over Tata being like crying over like, oh, Tata did its duty, like maybe I could have done so much more if I did this, like expand upon it like in a
Yeah,
different
exactly.
way,
If it was like
and reflect on it.
Tata sacrificed herself for everyone, and that's why she's crying. She's crying because
Mm-hmm.
Tata did that. She made something that gave itself up in willing sacrifice. Because even remember,
And
like
she learned from that, yeah.
the last thing that Tata does is that it does its little cute smile face before it blows up. So like that's weirdly something I would get emotional about. And so I could imagine Yvonne getting emotional if she saw that. If she saw like I made that. I made something that was willing to sacrifice itself. It was like a child to me. And that child wanted more for this world. And so I want to fulfill that legacy. I want to focus more on what Tata wanted. But instead it's
Yeah.
just, no, let's just build Tata again. Because why learn from the past when I can just keep living in it? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's no, okay, yeah. Yvonne's story sucks. Yvonne fans suck. Let's move on to Leviathan.
Okay, so to set the stage for Levitain,
Levitate.
Suitor has been in the game for OG Arknights for like 5 years
No lore in
with
your mouth.
little to no lore
And
for her
that's
character.
weirdly the point. And I kind of loved it.
Yeah.
I kind of loved it. The fact that that was literally the point of Leviathan's arc is that
Yeah.
she feels this sort of emotional attachment to what made Leviathan. Still don't know if I'm saying that right. You said it right. The way you said it sounded right. No, I don't.
Levitain.
Levitain, yeah. And so Levitain had this emotional attachment to what she felt she should be by comparing herself to the memories of Surtur. But instead she finds this greater meaning in forging her own path and being her own person working for Enfield. And it was a very, very well told story, and it was done very, very well. And what's hilarious is that it was the only story that had unique environments. It was very clearly
Yeah,
the
that's
story they put the most
true.
effort into. Because you have like the ice caves in the very beginning, you have like the hallways, even though it's the same hallway over and over again. You had different rooms in those certain hallways. They easily put the most effort into it, and it ended up being the most engaging story, which I just find to be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole imagery of her dealing with like the phantom version of herself being like, the thing is though, is that the phantom version of herself wasn't her, it was Surtur. And so it's this constant battle of like, who really am I? Am I Surtur? I have to deal with the responsibilities and the things of that, because memories are obviously something that define who we are. That's something that our own lived experiences form our beliefs, they form our motivations, they form our personalities. And so it ends up asking a really interesting question of like, what if you were born with no memories that are actually your own? Are you your own person, or are you forced to be the person that you never were? And so I think it's such an interesting question, and that's something that they kind of explored a little bit with Levitain. And it ended up just being like, no, I can forge my own path. I can be my own person. I can find, I forget the exact term they use, but they say like, oh yeah, Leviathan or Surtur, she likes her ice cream because haha, funny ice cream meme. That meme is stupid. I'm sorry, but she has the ice cream. She hangs out with all of her friends, and that was like her muse or something. It was something that like it was home. I think that was what it was called. That's the term they used. That was her home, but there is no Rhodes Island on Valley 4. There is no ice cream. I guess there probably is, but that's the point is that they were making, is that is what Surtur's home was, but Leviathan doesn't have that. That's what she feels, but that isn't what she has. So she needs to find her own home, and she finds that in Enfield. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. I love that. That's really, really... It's executed significantly better than I'm saying it right now. I have no idea if the story is still up. You should go read it. It's really good. If it's not still up, go watch my stream, because I gush over it. I had a ton of fun. And keep in mind, I didn't like Surtur coming into this, because I, in my head, associate Surtur with automatic win button. I don't want to play the game. And so I had a
Right.
negative connotation going in because this is an already popular character. I was expecting this to just be slop, but it was really, really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
so,
what
yeah.
is and what is even more impressive about Suitor Story that I also want to tack on is how they handled the administrator. So
Wait, Serta or Lavatine?
for Levitane's
Okay, okay.
story, like how they brought an administrator into the story.
Yeah.
So for the entirety of Valley 4, they didn't really do anything with him that was remotely interesting. They basically said, "Oh well, he apparently fought a bunch of wars with the Angloi and did a bunch of stuff, but it was all past tense."
Yeah.
And also, we didn't really have like any meaningful flashbacks of that because
You don't even get
they
any good character moments with him. Like, he isn't.
right.
He's never characterized. He's just a blank
Yeah.
self insert slate.
And so he just felt like a nothing character, like a
Yeah.
purposefully made self-insert character, and that is also like it really like bugs me to this day that they put so many like moments in the story where Edmund could have been voiced, but then they go with pointless dialogue options that usually don't do anything.
That don't matter, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that don't matter.
but in Lavitin's story, he was mostly
Yeah,
fully
he was
voice
mostly
acted,
voiced.
and you didn't choose the options for him. He was his own
Yeah.
character. There were a few moments, and I do think there were some important moments where I think it was stupid. But like I remember there was like a full, like whole cutscene. It was like him going into like this burning building that was kind of like it was very similar to like Kazdel or something like that. And there's like Surtur just like burning up, and like he grabs onto her hand, and it's fully voice acted, and it's just like more of this, please. Please. And it's like he's playing this more heroic, accepting role of like he actually feels like a leader. He feels very accepting for Lavatane. So it is amazing how we can go from being so negative to so positive like so quickly, because
Yeah.
the Lavatane story is legitimately really good, and it's
And and the other thing with Administrator is that they did well, it's becoming a cliche now of the main character having amnesia again.
I
Like, I
think we
mean,
talked about that last time we did
yeah,
this, where it's
yeah.
like he's just the doctor, but less interesting. So I don't give a shit.
And so we talked about after Levitane's story is that they actually decided to meaningfully use that amnesia of giving the Endman
A way,
imposter syndrome.
yes, or
I
giving
do
him a way
believe
to
is the
relate
term.
to Lavatane.
Yeah, and throughout that story, he keeps having like visions or thoughts of, I heard all of these stories that I'm supposed to be like the super amazing guy because I mean, let's be real here, the whole cast endlessly glaze the
Yeah,
Endman
exactly. Yeah,
through
they
the
play into
majority
it
of the
really well,
story.
and it's like a reasonable
Yeah.
like expectation of just like, am I really that? Who am I? Am I actually? And again, it plays into that theme I was talking about of like, is the Endman the same person that he was if he has? It's kind of the opposite where I'm like, oh, Lavatane has all of the memories of someone that she actually wasn't, but the Endman has all of the memories of something that he was. Or no, the Endman lost memories of something that he was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's
there
this
you go.
interesting question of like, who really are you? What makes you? And that kind of thing. And so, no, yeah, you're complete. I'm really glad you brought that up because it's a really good way to connect the Endman as a character and Lavatane in that really cool kind of a way for them to relate to each other. And that plays into like how kind of lonely both of them can, not the Endman obviously, but how Lavatane can feel with this whole thing. That connection felt really strong. So it's, it was so good.
Well, I also think in some ways like the Endman might actually feel, well, depending on stuff, he might actually feel lonely from time to time because he can't really relate to other people
Yeah.
like in the same way because everyone, like I said, everyone's endlessly glazing him as this amazing guy, and he keeps thinking, well, in that story he kept thinking to myself like, who was I before? What was I like
Yeah.
this tyrant? Are
But
people like just thinking that
yeah.
I can't do it this time? Like they did a great job with actually meaningfully use that, and I'm actually honestly impressed.
Kind of getting excited about it because it's something that they just refuse to do for the rest of Enfield, because this isn't a character thing that they really do with him. I think they kind of do it a little bit, but it's not something that actually pushes his motivation as a character. It is purely just secondary. And so
Did 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 you move away from your mic? You're a little quiet
did I?
now.
Am I super quiet? Because I something happened with my mic, so it might be a weird
Yeah,
sound.
you're a bit quiet.
Gotta
Sorry, you
fix that.
might need to repeat that.
1, 2, 3. Is
Yeah,
that
no,
better?
now you're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's weird. Yeah, no, my mic reset on Discord. Okay, what was the fuck was I saying? Oh yeah, it's just like they don't do anything with the end administrator in the actual story, which is the main kind
Mm-hmm.
of issue I had. But they really do properly characterize him in Leviton's story, but then they still don't do anything with it, which is weird because that's such an interesting like thing you can do with this character of just like that's even something I think we talked about in the last Crushcast, where it's like you have the whole scene with like Perlica and like Ginny, and it's like Perlica telling, you know, you have this moment where Perlica's talking about the good that Enfield does, but you have the Endman has a tiny bit of doubt that what they did was wrong, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's just swept up of no, we were the good guys.
Yeah.
And so it could have been this larger character driven thing that really could have made Enfield stick out from normal Arknights, because that's not what Arknights is. The
Mm-hmm.
you know the doctor is still a different character than the administrator when you take it from that route. It's the doctor still just kind of being his own more noble heroic self, while the
Mm-hmm.
administrator really wants to kind of understand who he is and who he can be. Like that, you can take the same amnesia plot but take it in two completely different directions. And I think that's something they could have done, but they fucking didn't. Except maybe they did, because you read the 1.1 and 1.2 story, and I did not. That's a
Well,
segue.
unfortunately, they don't really bring that up again. Like it's kind of oddly secluded into only being shown in Levitane's story, which is unfortunate.
Okay, then. That sucks. But hey, they talk about the new waifus, right? You have the pink-haired lady and the green lady, right?
Yeah.
You have them. They're cool, I'm sure.
So getting into 1.1 and 1.2, I do want to talk about it. So when it comes to the beginning of Wu Ling, I wish that was the start of the story instead of Valley 4, because in Valley 4, you constantly see them demonizing the Landbreakers for some reason, dehumanizing them, and they just like don't do anything with it either. Like
Yeah.
they basically show like Enfield and the UWST as just being like these colonizers, and they have no thought or anything about the Landbreakers or anything, even though that they seem to be the people who were there before. Um, and also they didn't really do anything with Neferith. Like they didn't elaborate on why she was trying to bring the Landbreakers together. Was it because she was manipulating them to her own ends? Did she actually care? Was she part of the Landbreakers? You know, like there was a lot of stuff that they just didn't do anything with Valley 4. When it comes to Wuling, the reason why that instantly stood out to me, and we've talked about it a little bit before starting the Crushcast, is that they finally made like Chen and Perlica, and to a certain extent, Endman, be their own characters, and like
Kind of, yeah.
Endman and Chen like doing goofy stuff, and Perlica being confused but going along with it. Like that was a great dynamic to
Yeah.
loosen up the group, to
They gain
get them to
chemistry.
bond.
They gain
Yeah,
personality because Perlica definitely needed a personality, and the Endman was just very
right.
boring. Obviously, Chen had her personality, but she had no one to bounce off of, and so now the three
Mm-hmm.
gained a very they gained a lot of chemistry. They gained a really good dynamic in the first chapter of Wu Ling, and it was refreshing. There was no
Mm-hmm.
substance to it. It was a Saturday morning cartoon, especially alongside Tong Tong,
Yeah.
but it was refreshing because it was significantly better, just inter-character writing
Mm-hmm.
compared to Valley 4, because it was just like, I'm having fun now. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
boring. This isn't just people standing around, you know, being boring. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what happened after the fact, which is what you have to kind of clue me in on.
Mm-hmm. So there was that dynamic, but also with Enfield giving Tang Tang the stockade their own factory, like it actually showed the audience, the player, that hey, Enfield is doing good and trying to improve the quality of the lives of the local people. Like it felt like, you know, actually showing them doing good, whereas in Valley 4, we were only being told that, and we were only being shown that Enfield helping the people that they were already collaborating with. Like that's, to me,
Yeah,
that's an obligation, not, them doing it out of their own goodwill.
that's a good point.
Um, so that is why Wu Ling to me at least started off much better. So in 1.1, the biggest problem that I have is that you instantly start off with the stockade going to war with Wu Ling again. And you have a part of the stockade, which is Tang Tang and the people that you interacted with in that small settlement. They didn't want that. Whereas there's another like half of the stockade that wants to go to war with Wu Ling. And what I did like about it is that they explained that the reason why the stockade does not like Wu Ling is because they had been basically the only people on the land for like a number of decades before Wu Ling started to get built. And they didn't really have too many blight issues until Wu Ling appeared, and then there was like this major blight event. So they blamed Wu Ling because they knew that Wu Ling was doing like the science stuff to make Shiranite, and they didn't understand what that all entailed because they kept to themselves. So I kind of like that, like their grudge against each other was kind of made out of a misunderstanding. Um, and I thought that was understandable. The problem that I have is that at the end of 1.0 is that with Enfield helping Tang Tang with the getting their own settlement and stuff and improving the life so that they no longer need to steal from Wu Ling in order to keep themselves alive with supplies and everything, and also Wu Ling themselves trying to help out the stockaders with teaching them how to use their own factory. It looked like their relations between themselves were improving. And then you have 1.1 where it just instantly starts off with no build up that they're fighting each other and that they raided like one of the parts of Wuling, the what is it, the environment surveying island or whatever, was attacked by stockaders. And so we go into the stockade to find Tang Tang, who was imprisoned because the other side of the stockaders overthrew her, and they were being led by her brother. And Ardashir came in and kind of spurred him along, to have revenge, to go against Wuling, or her brother found or saw him as an opportunity to strike back, type of thing, to have revenge. Which, at the surface level, I am fine with that. But the problem is that the way that they tell the story is that it sounds like her brother encouraged Tang Tang to like let go and not seek out revenge. And also he like never apparently brings it up or like shows hints that he still has a grudge against Wu Ling, and he like kind of blames Wu Ling because apparently Tang Tang like injured her eye during this whole blight event. So there's just a lot of things that like at face value like you can kind of gloss over, but like when it's kind of like the Yvonne story where you take a critical eye to it and there's so many things that just don't add up, that they didn't set up properly in order to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And then there's also apparently like a whole entire secret part of the stockade that either Tang Tang didn't know about, or she didn't know her brother was like having a secret hideout there or whatever. So
that seems silly.
There's that too.
I obviously have no idea what you're talking about. That sounds stupid. There's a secret.
Yeah.
Wait, there's a secret stockade that Big Bro is hiding?
Yeah, like the people who wanted to go to war with Wu Ling were like preparing in this cave that is right next to the stockade, and then they even have like built structures there, and it's like, how did Tung Tung like never
Is it
think
like the
about?
Is it like the same cave that like we enter Wu Ling in?
No, it isn't. It's a different
cave?
one.
Yeah. So Tang Tang just
But
never
still.
questions why her brother is gone for extended periods of time. I guess she's in
I
prison half
guess.
the time, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, probably. So, so 1.1 at the end of it, what I really enjoyed throughout its story is that it really showed character development in Tang Tang in showing that her character growth taking charge of the stockade again, because throughout the in 1.0 when you first reach Wu Ling, she's like all about being the supreme chief of the stockade, right?
Yeah.
But it was clear, especially after she was in prison and everything, that really her brother was the one in charge of everything, or at least in charge of most things. And people just listened to Tong Tong because her brother told everyone to listen to Tong Tong, not because they necessarily respected her. So it was really nice to see that, and also Tong Tong, even though that she even admits that she isn't the smartest person, that she even realizes like the ramifications of the stockade going to war with Wu Ling, and that they don't have a chance, and she doesn't want this conflict
Yeah.
between them. And so she's having multiple emotional moments throughout the story of like, I don't know what to do, I don't want this conflict to happen, and my brother completely messed this up. And also like they just got their own factory and everything. She's like, we could have, you know, finally had a truce with them and make this work, and yet he screwed it up. And so there were multiple moments that I really liked from that perspective of seeing her character growth, but they just don't do anything with her brother. And even Ardashir is like, hey, you don't need to go through with fighting Wu Ling if, you know, there's always a chance, you can always change your mind
What?
at this point before going in. Like, Ardashir
Okay.
sounded like he wasn't trying to force him into it, but
Okay.
he did it anyway.
I really like what you're saying that like Tong Tong's like little story is. I think that's really cute. Like she's this naive kid who really wants to be part of something, but she kind of realizes that she lacks the maturity or understanding to really function as a leader. That's really cool. I like that. But you saying that, okay, because you said earlier that like, oh, Ardashir is kind of controlling, because he's working with Nefereth. He's controlling Big Bro to go to conflict with Wu Ling, and it's like this whole, you know, puppet strings war sort of thing. And then you're saying that he gave him the choice to back out of it, or is it like, or is it like fake? Is it artificial? You have a choice, like, oh no, you totally have the choice here. This is you making this decision, not me. You know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of my issue with the story is that they made it sound like he didn't necessarily want to, like, completely go against his will and make him do that, but he was teaching him the to improve his arts in order to do that if he so chose. So it's very confusing, and also apparently the Landbreakers were involved with helping the Stockaders who wanted to go at war with Wu Ling. So there's just so many things in that story. It's like I really like Tang Tang's character development, and they even use Mifu in a way to urge Tang Tang on and confront her about, you know, the real ramifications of that stuff. And then you have all of these little things. Well, I shouldn't say little things, but there's like multiple things that if you take any kind of critical thinking to it, it really just doesn't make sense and falls apart. And that was my biggest issue with 1.1, even though that I enjoyed it, and honestly, it was what convinced me to continue playing because I saw the improvement and that they were able to write some decent stuff, or were willing to. That it just really frustrated me.
Yeah.
And so when we get to 1.2, Ardashir and Nefereth directly attack Wuling. And I have to say that like the whole conflict within Wuling
Wait, so
is amazing.
wait, so he just Ardashir just attacks Wuling himself?
Yes,
Does he
with
use the
Nefereth.
stockade?
It,
Does
in 1.1 he wanted to recruit the Stockaders
so then
to
Big
help,
Bro
yeah.
said no, and he's like, okay, we'll just do it himself.
No, no, no. Big Bro wanted it,
Yeah.
and so he wanted to side with Ardashir, but then Ardashir is like, if you don't actually want to do this, I'm not going to force you to do it. And then Big Bro is like, well, it's too late now. And then we kill him, basically.
Build Big Bro?
Yeah. Yeah, he's the boss of
Okay.
1.1.
Okay, well that's an important
So
thing
you
to
stop
know.
him, yeah.
Okay, well, that's sad. Well, now that's spoiled for me, Lamau. I wasn't gonna read it anyways.
So
Okay,
so then
continue.
you put us
Continue. Yeah, no, you
so
saying
then
that Big Bro died was important. My bad. You're up.
yeah, and then you of course see Tang Tang being greatly affected by that
Yeah.
and everything. So it also helped her character development. And there are some stockaders that you do fight in 1.2. So Ardashir still did recruit some
Okay. Because I'm
in
thinking
the
like,
conflict.
because
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself like, if he could just attack Wuling on his own, why the fuck did he need the stockaders?
I don't know. I mean, he was doing a pretty good job of it on his own, so I don't know. So in 1.2, Ardashir devises a plan to attack Wuling directly, and it has this one thing called the Marker Stone, which is basically an ancient pillar that they made that was basically the prototype for the other pillars that use the Sheer Knight to
Yeah.
repel the blight. And Ardashir and Neferth was going to use the blight to help them invade and take out Wuling.
And do evil
And
things that I'm sure were
yeah.
explained.
So they attack that, and then we try to stop them at the Marker Stone, and that is where it revealed that apparently the Fairmount Sui are still around, or at least one of them is, and they showed that they had basically the same power as Dusk, because I think they're referring to the new Sui that was teased and not Dusk directly. Of course, they don't actually say her name. I'm sure the new one doesn't have a name, and they're not gonna say Dusk directly.
So it's gonna be in Dusk Alter. It's gonna be a copy version of Dusk. So what you're telling me is that we're getting just retrains of the same operators, and if
I
they're
don't
not
know.
clones, it's just gonna be the same operator, but this time it's a future version.
I don't know.
What
But,
would you? Okay, well, actually, hypothetically, what would you do if they just released Dusk, but her name's not Dusk, it's Sunset, and it's just the same character in every way, and she just sucks now, but she's in Enfield. What do you do? Her motifs are
I
the same. Everything's basically the same, but her writing is significantly worse. What do you do?
I would be I would be really disappointed, probably aggravated in some ways if they brought her to Enfield. In all honesty, I would rather have like the long lifespan characters coming back rather than the clones. In all honesty,
This isn't like, it's not as a clone. It's like, okay, it's the
right?
new Sui, and this is one of the parts of it. But instead of making new parts of Sui, it's just the old ones, but they're new in the same way that all of the other new characters are quote unquote new.
Honestly, if she is basically Dusk but like with a different design, I would be pretty disappointed because at that point it would be like, well, why didn't you just release Dusk then?
No, I'm
Like,
saying
in all
hypothetically,
honesty.
what if it was just Dusk? But it's not Dusk, you know? Instead of Dusk,
Right.
it's Sunset. But it's
I
just
I
Dusk.
would be I would be fine with it if they actually showed character development with the character, but with how Enfield's writing is, like there is a chance they'll do that, and there's a chance that they'll make her exactly the same. And if she is exactly the same, I would not like that
So
because
you would be fine with it as long as it's like a Leviathan thing instead of like a Gilbert thing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If they actually do, if they show her to have changed over the course of time, the in a significant way, based on the character development that she is getting in regular Arknights, I would be fine with it. But if they don't, and like
Oh no,
either
this is a
revert,
different entity entirely. It's just
oh,
it's the new Sui, but it's a new segment of this new Sui that just so happens to be exactly the same as Dusk. It's not the same character.
uh, hmm.
It's basically, instead of Angelina, we have Gilberta. This is the Gilberta for Dusk, called Sunset.
uh, yeah, I probably would be upset from that, and I wasn't really a fan of them adding a new Sui either because they kind of made it clear that it was only 12 for a reason, and now they're like, hey, there's another one.
Well,
Just
when you have a formula that works, just do
right,
it
yeah.
again. You don't need to like, because again, Enfield isn't its own thing. Enfield is just Arknights 2, except with all of the
Right.
good parts of Arknights gone. Okay,
Yeah,
continue 1.2 discussion. We are over time right now, so
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so Ardashir goes after the Marker Stone, and eventually you have a situation where he is able to talk with just the Enman and isolate him from his friends, and they have a chat, and apparently he is as old as um as like the time gap between Enfield and regular Arknights because he has been around to apparently be either an advisor or like an actual king of being able to he helped build up several different civilizations to be great apparently. And so he has been around, and apparently his goal is to release a certain kind of people called the exiles, which they haven't revealed who those are, but they have a connected connection to the ether, and he wants Enderman to join him because apparently he needs him to release these exiles. So he has a clear motivation now, um, but we don't know enough about the exiles yet to really expand upon that. So of course Enman rejects him because Ardashir is doing all this evil stuff. Um, Nephrith becomes a boss at the end, and they fight the Wuling Dragon Lady and everything. And I say it, and as I said before, like the whole conflict of them bringing Wuling to siege was amazing. They even brought in Japan for some
Okay, now I'm
significant screen
interested.
time.
Okay, now I'm interested.
Yeah. And so all of that was great. However, the
So what you're
part
telling me,
after
so what you're telling
after
me,
the fight.
what you're telling me is that it was a heckin' epic Marvel movie, and you would give it Reddit gold.
Yeah. Yeah, it
It was
was
an epic, awesome fight scene, and there were
mhm.
explosions, and it was epic CG. Okay,
It was
continue.
great. Yeah. Yeah. It was as peak as Enfield has ever gotten. And then they had the willing dragon lady help you fight Neferith. And as I showed in a few screenshots while I was in the middle of it, afterward it showed that she reflected on how she has governed Wuling and that she felt like she could have handled the conflict between Wuling and the Stockade better, and um, to that she could have done different things, which is awesome because it kind of felt like until that point, like most of the characters are like they don't reflect on their actions. So to have one actually do that, especially a leader character that people respect, like that was great. However, then you have the part afterward where apparently the siege on Wuling like either reopened an ether rift or something. So then the Endman has to help her close it. And they work together to create a Shiranite device and improve it enough to help her like actually finally close it and everything. And the problem that I have is that they really lay on the whole, I guess, waifu part of the character. Like it was clear that they were doing a lot of that stuff because they're like, hey, this character didn't get enough screen time. We know she's popular, but we need to do everything that we can to make to sell her in a sense. Um and some of the backstory that she like most of the backstory that she got, like I didn't mind, but like actually seeing her backstory and stuff like that should have been a side story. Like having it in the main story was kind of, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but I think overall it was fine. But like the amount of time where it's where they're like, wow, look at how great she works with the Edmund. Aren't they great together? Aren't they awesome? And all of this stuff. I was like, even as someone who likes her, I'm like, come on, this is a bit much. So that ironically took the patch from being like amazing for me overall, especially given how the previous updates were, and it knocked it down a notch. Ironically, so there was that.
Yeah.
Um, but I did feel like she did get some good character development from that. And what really surprised me was that they gave character development to Li Fang. And a little bit for Chen as well. Li Fang, like at the end of the fight, like he reflected on his parents who were also watch guards, and apparently they weren't able to give him as much attention as he would have liked when he was a kid. But now, after seeing like his first major conflict, he reflected on that and be like, "Whoa, this is the responsibility that my parents took on, and now I understand." And that was actually like huge. Like I love that. It was like this right here. They know how to write a story. Why did it take them so long? But anyway, so that was awesome. And then for Chen, they revealed why she was kicked out of Wuling. Well, apparently she decided to leave. She didn't get kicked out. She failed exams to become like part of like the special ops version of the watch guards. like the Dragon Lady's like special forces that monitor the blight and stuff. Like she was rejected from that, um, mostly because her instructor told her that she was immature, and I think that was great character development. But the problem that I have with that is that as we saw through 1.0 and even 1.1, it doesn't really feel like Chen really acknowledged that much. If if you would have thought that she would be more she would try to be more professional and stuff, and there's a little bit of that, but not enough for me to be like, huh, like for that to make sense. Because so far, like, she's like this complete goofball. She wants to run straight into battle, not really
Yeah.
thinking about stuff. And then and then apparently she knows that she was rejected because of her immaturity, and yet you would have thought that she would have reflected on that, and maybe she does to a certain extent after seeing this big conflict, but they didn't. I don't think they did enough for that, unfortunately. So
That makes
one
sense.
point
Yeah.
1.2 overall, I thought was good. Unfortunately, they still, I mean, they have minor things that I talked about that I'm not, that I wish was better, and they still didn't elaborate on Neferith's backstory or her motivations at all. She basically is just treated as a pawn for Adashir to do what he wants. Unfortunately, she has a great boss fight, so that is awesome. But um, but they just don't. They didn't want to. They didn't write anything about what her motivations were, and that frustrates me because,
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done something with it, and maybe they'll say something. But so far, like, Wu Ling, especially when it comes to like the enemies and stuff, or conflicts between the different factions, has been so much better because the Landbreakers are flat out barely in it. So it's like you take this nothing burger of a faction, toss them out, and hey, the story's better. like, wow, amazing. Who would have thought? Um, and then 1.1. One thing I did forget to mention is that Rossi got a character story. I thought it was decent. I enjoyed it. Um, they were trying to show like how Rossi had, an abnormal childhood, and that and showed her, like, the Endman was encouraging her to like kind of have fun with the kids at the UWSD, and stuff like that, and encourage her to like kind of have a little bit of that childhood that she never had. And I thought that was decent. The only problem is that the Endman barely talks throughout the whole story. For Rossi's story specifically. So it would have been much better if you see like Edmund like encouraging her and teaching her stuff if that was actually voiced, but they didn't. So it kind of suffered a little bit because of that. Um, but I think they did overall have a much better balance of having the Endman be consistently voiced at least throughout the main story for 1.2 especially. Um, so I think they are definitely improving. And like I said, 1.2 especially, with all things being considered, I thought was great. But unfortunately, it was given very bad cards to start out with, so you know, uh, it wasn't perfect, and there was also other things like I mentioned, that it wasn't a masterpiece, but it was leagues ahead of what they had done for the previous two versions for their main story, and I think they've improved a lot. and I hope they continue to improve. So they convinced me to continue to play, um, and all that,
Yeah.
for the time being. And before we end the recording, I do want to mention, like, a big thing that I've been seeing around is that a lot of people, when it came to the criticism and stuff about the early versions, a lot of people are like, "Oh, let Hypergriff cook," and all of this. And my response to that is that, of course, all of the things that we enjoy, we want it to be the best version it can be, right?
Yeah.
And all that. And when people say let Hypergriff cook, like, yeah, I hope that they continue improving. Of course I do. But the thing is that, and the reason why Valley 4 being as bad as it is such a big deal, is that for players like you, Bloop, you gave it multiple different chances. You gave it another chance with the side stories after you finished it. It's like, well, I'm not having a good time, but I'm at least gonna do this, give it another chance, and you ended up saying, I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, how many chances did I give the game? I remember distinctly, it was 10 days in of me playing the game, I was having serious thoughts about quitting the game because of how disappointed I was
I asked
with
you.
everything.
I asked, like, I was questioning you, and not out of, like, I don't want you to think that I'm asking you this because it's like, oh, I don't enjoy the game. Why are you? Like, it's out of genuine curiosity. It's like, why are you still playing Enfield? And you're just like, I still kind of enjoy the gameplay. And I'm like, all right, fine. Because something that does kind of worry me is that you're talking about how, like, oh, the story is so much better. There's actual character development, and it's like, is that how low the bar is? That
Right? Yeah.
what
Yeah.
makes the story better is that now we have what a story should have: dynamic
Right.
characters. And so, because I haven't read the story, so I don't know because you can't just have dynamic characters and have that actually mean a good story. Because I remember when I played Nikke, a long time ago. I fucking hated that game. That was fucking terrible. And I remember I made a little community post about it. I'm like, oh, Nikke sucks. And a huge reason why I hated the game is because it handled its main themes terribly. It tried to do this whole idea of, like, what is, humanity, and, like, you have this, like, the whole main premise is that all the characters are robots, which is really creepy given the context they exist in. But
Yeah.
they're robots, and they're meant for war, and they're designed interestingly. And so you have one of the characters that accepts the fact that they're a robot. They're not human. They're meant to be a tool. And it tries to take itself seriously, but it can't because it's constantly sexualizing the characters. And so it's impossible for me to take the characters seriously. And I remember in a community post where I'm just like, oh, Nikke is a shit game. There was someone talking about how it's like, oh no, Nikke is actually really good. It has themes of depression and humanity and existentialism. I'm like, just because you have themes doesn't immediately make it good. A theme is what you're actually just supposed to have, and you're supposed to execute upon that theme well in a way that engages the audience. And in the same way, Enfield can't just have character development and just have that be like, oh, it's good now. They made their characters not pieces of cardboard. They are slightly dynamic.
Right, yeah.
Obvious, I can't, I'm not saying you're lying to me. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not saying that, like, but what I'm thinking to me is just like, oh yeah, 1.2 is so much better because now there's character development. It's like that's what it should be. That's the bare minimum.
Right, yeah. I
should
agree.
be analyzing the story not based off of whether or not it has the elements of a story, but whether or not it's actually captivating. Because the reason why Lavatin's story is really good isn't just because it hits story beats, it's because it actually made me think. It actually made me feel for a character. It's not simply just like, oh, it actually gave her it didn't check off the motivation checkbox. It didn't check off the backstory checkbox. It didn't check off the theme checkbox. Like, it didn't just do that. It properly made me invested in this character and made me ask questions to myself. Writing is more than just filling out checkboxes. And so, obviously, again, I'm not calling you a liar, but it's just like, you're complimenting the story for saying that Tung Tung had an arc. Chen had an arc that was apparently poorly executed upon because she had an arc in the past, but she didn't actually learn anything from it, so it was pointless. And like Li Feng had a bit of an arc, even though he's kind of a nothing character. But and the main dragon lady, like she had her little arc, but it's like, what substance did those arcs actually bring to the table? Why would you read Enfield's lore? Why would you read Enfield's story? What does it actually tell you? Or is it just like, this is something that will satiate my brain while I play the button mashing game? It feels, again, I'm not trying, I keep saying this, I'm not trying to say that you're lying to me and you don't know what you're talking about. But to me, it's just like, we've reached a point where we're just happy that the game attempts to actually write a story. The game isn't really trying to present something. It's just, it has story beats, guys. Clap. And so, that's at least what I'm getting, and it's just like, fuck. But I'm sure you obviously had fun with it, and that's what matters. But
yeah,
it's just,
yeah. The main thing that I wanted to bring up was that when I had it was 10 days in where I had serious thoughts about quitting the game because I was so disappointed with how everything went.
Yeah.
And honestly, the factory gameplay was one of the main reasons at the time that I decided to stay. And I was like, well, this is Hypergriff. Like, there are so many things that I enjoy about OG Arknights. Surely there was either it was feedback from testers or they were influenced by Genshin or Withering Waves, whatever the case may be, that it ended up having this level of story. Like, sure, they know how to write better stories. Surely this was a mistake somehow. And so I stuck with it, and like we talked about, like with the Suitor story, like that gave me a little bit of hope, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick around for 1.1 and see how it goes. And yeah, Tang Tang's arc for me what was enough to convince me to continue playing, and that was kind of around that time where I started being able to build more teams, and then the combat got much needed variety for me because I had more than just the physical team. Yeah. Well, technically I have 2 physical teams, but whatever. So that convinced me to continue playing. But I think to address your concerns was I think the point of Lefang's story too was also showing the major conflict through the eyes of basically just a citizen and how he was affected by seeing all of these people that because he's like a freshman in college essentially. Like he's brand new to the Watchguards basically. I think when you first meet him, and he sees this major conflict, and to see him like be affected by seeing all of these people hurt when he's being treated at the pharmacy, and also like reflecting on his past, like that, like to me, I think that adds more to it than just story beats. I think there is stuff to think about.
Good.
In that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I came across as like too much. I had a thought in my head that I just wanted to get out. I'm not saying that's what that's what Enfield is. I'm saying that we should expect more from it. Is what
I do agree. I do agree. And one thing I do want to also mention, because I kind of a little bit forgot about it, was that the marker stone with the various different paintings in it, they show the what they call the Faramut heart. And if you've noticed in Here Are People Sows, Shu, Nian, and Dusk were all working on this project in order to create something that would counter at the actual Sui. when it came back, so that
Totally knew that.
so
Totally
so that the siblings can live free from needing to worry about it. Well, the Fairmont Heart in Wuling is basically the finished product that they made. So there's a bit of a lore thing that it's like I am that you can call it bait or whatever, but I enjoyed seeing like, hey, this is the continuation of their work, and seeing the finished product and like the results of that, like actually them using the time skip in a meaningful way this time. I did
Yeah.
like that.
So you, as a
But
fan, enjoyed fan
yeah,
service. Good.
yeah, you could say that.
That is the actual meaning of fan service, by the way. Fan service has nothing to
True.
do with the amount of clothes on a character and everything to do with actually paying tribute to the knowledge that a fan has. Ugh.
Yeah,
But no, yeah,
but
that's valid. That's cool.
I
obviously have no idea what you're talking about, but that's cool.
I think the reason also why that stands out just a little bit was because until that point we had hardly seen like there was basically like nothing in the world other than like Originum that's like, yes, this connects with OG Arknights. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
they've also talked about, oh well, here's some ancient machinery that the first people who established Wuling made. Like, apparently there's a side quest that I did that one guy who's like in charge of cleansing or making sure the spring in the stockade is clean. There's like a water purifier that was made back when Wuling was made, and that was supposed to like tie in like, hey, the people from the stockade and the people from Wuling are not necessarily like distant peoples and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and I did like that they what they brought with it. But like I said throughout this whole Crushcast, like even with the major improvements Enfield has made, it's still not perfect. Like, there's still room for improvement. There's still minor things that have irritated me, but they have been enough to convince me to continue playing. And with the more characters that I've been able to build, the combat has been satisfying enough for me, and the factory. But there is a little bit of the factory, like I said, like, it's kind of somewhat wearing out its novelty with adding the super complex stuff so far.
Yeah.
But overall, like, this is the most positive that I have been for Enfield. And the point I was trying to make with Bloop, his circumstances on quitting the game, is that when people say let Hypergriff cook, it's like, how many chances does a player give to the company to do well? And when you are a veteran player and you're going to try to recruit your friends to try out Enfield, and they say, well, how is the game? And they say, oh well, it only gets good after 50 to 100 hours or whatever. How do you think they're gonna respond? Like, you work now, how much free time do you have? Like, when somebody says, oh well, it gets good in 100 hours,
Yeah, no,
how does that make you
played the
feel?
game for like 100 hours. I don't
Yeah.
fucking enjoy it.
Yeah, so like, the let Hypergriff cook, like, yes, we want them to improve, but it is so important that the first impressions to your player is a positive one, and you do something with it. Like, people keep saying that, oh, the beginning of OG Arknight's story isn't very good. But the thing with Arknight's story is that it gave me something to hang on to intrigue me. It got me to introduce into its interesting world. It got me into interesting themes with how reunion is justified in their anger, and how Rhodes Island is trying to do this different approach that seems very unlikely to work.
And also how those concepts were unique and not derivative, like in Enfield.
Yeah. Yeah, it gave me something to latch onto, that even when as I was a new player, I was like, okay, I'm not fully into this world and story yet, but it has these interesting concepts that I want to see where this goes. And
Yeah.
so when they flushed it out more, and like in chapter 3, like them showing Misha and Rhodes Island trying to get her on their side, and Reunion is trying to get her on their side. It's like, well, it shows the internal conflict of the infected people. Well, do they go for the medical, more peaceful approach, or are they more justified and more likely to get results by going the revenge route? Like, I actually thought that Misha's story arc, at least from what I remember, like the general themes of it, was okay. And so even though that it took until chapter 4 and 5 ish before I really got invested into it, I still enjoyed the different themes that they were trying to present.
Yeah.
And Enfield in Valley 4 especially gave me nothing. It didn't give me any intrigue, it didn't give me any reason to care about it. And the Landbreakers, why should I care? Every single character, except for like one off character, treats the Landbreakers like crap and disposable trash. So why should I care about that entire faction? Oh, well, Wolfguard and Rossi, for some reason, are Landbreakers that are friendly to Enfield. Well, then why are the Bone Crushers specifically treated like garbage then? And why do they have the, they're the IQ of like a snail?
Yeah.
It's like, not only are they portrayed as being incredibly stupid from an intelligence standpoint, but they're also not treated as human characters or anything worth anything. So then it's like, well, if the characters don't care about them, why should I care?
Yeah.
And so OG Arknights, with all of its flaws that it has at the beginning of its story, it did enough to keep a new player interested. And that is why I am so aggravated by how Valley 4 treated not only Arknight's history with the infected, with the Ripathy. Like, they basically downplayed it to the point where it barely exists.
Yeah.
And even the characters that have it, supposedly, in their file, like Rossi and Wolfguard, apparently have a Ripathy. And they, like, Rossi has a voice line mentioning that she got, like, medical treatment at some point, but they don't directly mention a Ripathy. And Tang Tang mentions it at Dijon in one of her voice lines, but it's one of those things where it's like, not only did I need to pull the character in order to know that, it's barely mentioned, even then. It's like, why does a Ripathy even exist then? Yeah. And at the same point, because it exists, it kind of disrespects OG Arknights, because it means that the Doctor, Amia, Monster, Calcit, Rhodes Island did not find a cure for it, and they beat Priestess, who apparently could remove Ripathy from other people. So it's like, what are we doing here? Like, what happened? So it's like a double-edged sword here. So it's frustrating. So yeah, even though that I am much more positive about the game, how they treated Valley 4's story is going to be a major roadblock for a lot of players. Not like, even aside from Arknight's lore, a lot of people who have never played Arknights before also said it was complete garbage and there was just nothing there.
Yeah.
And telling new players, well, it gets good in 50 hours or 100 hours, or after you get past speed run the first region, that takes however long, let Hypergriff cook, like, that only goes so far. And so I just wanted to make that point, that it's bigger than just, like, it it doesn't solve the issue that more care should have been taken to make sure that, and they've even shown in their technical test on Towa's video, they knew how to write a much better version of the story, and yet for some reason they either chickened out or was listening to feedback that actually was counterproductive for their story.
Yeah.
And this is what we ended up with. And now they're trying to pick up the pieces after the first, well, for sure the launch version, and maybe even 1.1, because it was mostly a filler patch as soon as you finish the story. That they're kind of picking up the pieces just to make sure that it continues. So they're kind of forced to
Yeah.
do show their best foot forward in that sense. So that's kind of all I got.
Something, okay, we're very much over time, but something I want to mention before we go, because you talked about earlier how it's like, you know, I ran out of chances with Hypergriff.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I even talked with Toboro about this, you know, a little bit ago, is that I have had experiences with the game will get better. I've had experience with that. I played this really shitty IP gotcha slop, and I only kept playing it because I cared about the IP so much. And I'm like, maybe one day that it'll get good because I care about the IP that much, and I want to see the game like thrive because I care so much about the IP. And it took me until like EOS for me to realize that this is a waste of time. It never got good, because sometimes, as much as it's nice to just say to yourself like, it might get better, they might cook, look, it's getting better, because I had those moments. There were occasional updates where the game wasn't complete, where it was slightly better than it was, but at the exact same time, it's not worth it. It's not worth it in the end, because at the exact same time, often the motivations behind a lot of these games is not to make a good experience. It is to make a profitable experience that hooks very easily addicted people into their systems. And often it is better for you to quit before you get too sunken into it. Sometimes it's just better to be like, it's not worth my time, it's not worth my energy. I'm just going to go and do something else that is going to be more fulfilling than to sink hundreds and hundreds of hours into a game that just pisses me off. And so I think it's very important to be able to step away from something, because as much as I do appreciate the optimism, I had that optimism. And I remember I was very critical of the game. I wanted it to get better, but it never got better because I'm not the person they listen to. The game isn't shit because they didn't have someone like me to give them criticism. The game is shit because designed in a way to fuck over its players. I'm not saying that's exactly what Endfield is. What I'm saying is that Endfield is the way that it is because the majority market wants it to be that way. And so as much as I would love to be optimistic, the reality of it is, the more time goes on, the more it will just end up emulating Genshin Impact. The more it will just end up emulating Wuthering Waves or Zenless Zone Zero or Honkai Star Rail or all those other Hoyo slop games. And so I wanted to just get done with it, because I don't want to put this emotional investment into something that I guarantee you is just going to crash and burn. And I'm not saying it will. There's a very slim chance it might be amazing, but I would rather put that time into playing actual Arknights, a game that I really, really love, I really, really appreciate. And I think that in general, it's better to put your energy towards something that currently is in a state that you appreciate, rather than hoping that one day it might be in a state that you appreciate.
Yeah. And that's kind of that was kind of the bit with me, is that a lot of my optimism was like, they have done a lot of this before, like what is going on, like, and if they didn't improve in 1.1, I probably would have quit too.
That's
something
that, like, again, because that's kind of what worries me. It's just like, they did improve, but did they really? You know what I mean? It's like the bar was so low, they just gave you something barely acceptable. Is that actually enough sign to say, like, oh, the game will get better? Or is it just like grasping for straws, like, hey, this is better than it was previously, therefore it has to be getting better? But I feel like at the rate it's going, it's like, is it truly worth it? Again, I'm not trying to say like you should quit right now. it's just more of, it's food for thought. Just like, at what needs to happen for this really to be exactly what I want? At what state will it be what I want? You know what I mean? And how long will that take? Is it really worth it?
Yeah, and I can understand that line of thinking, because I think I even mentioned before, on our first Enfield Crushcast, like I have played Genshin Impact for 5 years, and there were many moments where I did thoroughly enjoy it, but there were also a lot of moments where I just wasn't. And it is like, out of those 5 years, I've quit now. How many of those years, like how much of that content did I realistically enjoy? Because gotchas, in their very nature, with being a live service game, they try to do everything that they can to keep you going. Like that is why they that's why they have the stamina system, that's why they have the dailies, that's why they have like the constant limited time events.
Yeah.
Like Genshin was at the point where, as their norm, they would have a new event like every week, and then you would only have like 10 days to do it. So, and then they would time gate you so that you had to wait 3 or 4 days to even unlock all the content. So you couldn't do it all in one day unless you did it near the end of that event. So they would constantly have that, and then and stuff like that. So they, of course, do their best to form habits and everything. So it is very easy to get sunk into that, like I was. And it is kind of funny in many ways, is that all it took for me to decide to quit is like, why are you still playing? And if the answer is I don't know, well um then I think a real time to reflect is a good idea, because with Enfield, like I can say, well, I am enjoying the story, I am enjoying the combat, and I'm enjoying the factory still. So like I am still playing for those reasons. But for some of the other games, like Genshin and Withering Waves, like after a while, it's like, well, it's not worth continuing, and and in and I was glad that I decided to make that decision for myself. Of course, if you are enjoying those games for yourself, um, I'm glad for that. But if you're at the point where you feel like you're just doing dailies and all of this stuff, and you aren't enjoying it, um, uh, to quote a somewhat recent video, is, if you're not having fun, it's okay to stop. So I thoroughly resonate in a way of definitely your line of thinking, Bloop, like mentioning that.
Gacha games
Yeah.
prey on addiction. That is built into their systems mechanically. And that's also why they have it's not even just to get you addicted on the game, but also to get you addicted on external things. It's like, that's why a lot of gacha games are so like downright pornographic, because porn's really addictive. That's why a lot of gacha games really try and hook you on its characters in a very surface level way, to get you addicted to consuming the character in a parasocial manner. Gacha games are addicting by nature. That's the point. And so I think that often you will have a lot of people who don't realize that they're not playing the game because they genuinely enjoy it. They play the game because they're addicted, but they don't realize that they are. And that's something that it's saddening to me, because I've obviously suffered from, many addictions. And so it's very difficult to, nothing serious, I shouldn't say that. It's just like I didn't do fucking drugs. But you know what I mean? Like I've been addicted to my fair share of gacha games. And so it's important to be able to take a step back and to really like introspect into saying, like, is this something that genuinely makes me happy? Or is this something that I've convinced myself makes me happy because I'm addicted to it? Is this something that truly makes my life better? Or am I becoming a slave to my own impulses? And I need to act on those impulses in order for me to pretend that I feel happy, because you're just constantly chasing that instantaneous satisfaction rather than any actual greater meaning something non-material, something more impactful. I don't play Arknights because I'm addicted to it. I've gone days without logging into Arknights. I don't feel that, because I remember when that IP gotcha game I was talking about, I would feel terrified if I missed a single login. But with Arknights, I've missed tons of logins, even like now, because I'm just busy and I don't care. I don't give a shit if I miss a login, because that's not why I play Arknights. I play Arknights because I just love playing Arknights. And so it's important to me that people are capable of kind of understanding in what position are they, and do they truly enjoy the things that they enjoy. That's it. And so I think that's a good point to wrap this up. We are very much over time.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Hope you all have a great day, and we love you all. Anything you want to say,
Yeah.
Lowy?
Yeah, thank you for joining us on this rant. Well, not really a rant, but
No, I'm going to call this Crushcast Lowy rants about Enfield.
well, I did talk for...
This was a Lowy episode. It was a Lowy episode.
Yeah, I had my moment to talk for like, what, an hour and a half?
You got to talk. Everyone in the comments is going to be like, oh my god,
without
Lowy
too
finally
many
got to talk."
interruptions.
Finally, Bloop, shut up.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
so we'll call it.
Thanks for joining us.
Call it
guys,
there.
yeah.
Have a good one.